Morning, everybody. We'll be getting started in about 1 minute. Just get my pinned comments in place over on IG. What am I looking for? There we go. As y'all coming in on TikTok, good morning, everybody checking in on TikTok. Hope everybody, and over on Rumble, good morning, Rumble. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Facebook. We are good on Facebook. Make sure that we are official on LinkedIn. You gotta push extra buttons to get started on LinkedIn. But we are good on LinkedIn. Good morning, LinkedIn. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Rumble X, YouTube, Rumble X, YouTube, Instagram. Good morning, TikTok. Good morning. Make sure you are liking the live. As you come in, just like the live. Just the fact that you clicked in, the fact that you tapped in, like the live. You don't even know what I'm going to talk about yet. I haven't even started talking about it yet, but you should like the live. Everybody who's coming in, like the live, like the live, like the live, like the live. Wherever you're watching this, just like the live. Hit the like button. All right, that helps us get seen more, via this thing they call the algorithm. Algorithm tells everybody that this is something that somebody's watching, somebody sees some value in it. So like the live, tell me where you are checking in from. Crespo Realty, good morning to you. We sent you a DM about the circle. I saw you had sent a DM. My assistant should have wrote you back with a link to that. And as y'all are coming in, again, shout yourselves out. Tell me where you all are checking in from. I'm going to tell you something that I was talking to somebody about on X this morning that is not the topic that we're going to discuss here today. We are going to discuss the topic, but it was something I was talking about on X this morning, which is just kind of funny. And I will tell you why. Where is it? Here it is. Post. Somebody had made this post, and it was a video of, and this is not the topic, but we're going to get to the topic in a minute. It was I saw NY in there. Shout out to NY at Art Decor 21, checking in from NY. Shout out to New York. New York is a beautiful place. But I saw this guy posted that in West Boynton, which is a little bit up the road in South Florida, some look like two men are arguing about the sauna door, why the sauna door got open. It looks like some old white guy. Any of you ever been in one of these gyms? This is LA Fitness. So any of you ever been in one of these gyms? There's a bunch of old white guys walking around there. But for the most part, they're just walking around naked. I guess when you get over the age of, 70 or 80, you just stop giving a damn. So the white guy's not naked in this video. But then there's a younger black guy. This guy looks like he's about 35, maybe 40. And they're arguing with each other over somebody was saying you're leaving the door open. And I left a comment and said that if you go to any budget big box fitness facility, and by the way, LA Fitness is a budget big box fitness facility, do not use the shower, do not use the sauna, and do not use the steam room, and do not get in the pool. All right. If any of you go to any of these gyms, do not do these things. Do not use anything that involves water and heat in any of these places, any budget gym. So a Planet Fitness or what's the other one? UFit or any one of these cheap ass gyms ever has anything that combines water and heat, do not go in it. Do not use it. Wait till you go home. All right. Now I've been in these facilities and have used them at times, but now that I know what I know, I would never do it again. Now, why is this? Because I left this comment and then somebody was saying, well, why is this? And they were saying serious questions. So I'm gonna give you all the 4 reasons. And again, this is not the topic here today, but I was just talking about this on X this morning. So since it's fresh on my mind, I just want to give this information to a lot of you because I know a lot of you go to gyms and some of you may go to one of these cheap gyms. I ain't knocking you from going to a cheap gym. I've been a member of some cheap gyms. I've been an LA Fitness member more than once. I have actually worked at LA Fitness for a short period of time years ago. So I know how things work in these places. So let me just tell you these things so y'all understand. The YMCA is another good example. So any cheap gym or any gym that is priced, if the gym costs like $50 or less a month, then you better be careful and stay away from anything that involves water and heat. Okay, so the pool, the shower, the sauna, the steam room. Do not go in these places. And if you need to, you better protect yourself at all times, like they say in a boxing ring. So let me tell you the 4 reasons that I said. And again, this is not the topic. We'll get to the topic in a second. Number 1, the cleanliness and the sanitation. Because in working in these places and then just observing the workers, you notice that the cleaning standards are relatively low. The staff is not checked up on when they're doing the cleaning, and they use cheap ass cleaning products. They use these brand X cleaning products that don't clean shit. They basically just wipe it and then they take. You ever go to a restaurant or something and you sit down at the table and you come to the staff, you say, hey, there's some food in the seat. Can you wipe that? Or can you wipe the table because something's missing? And someone will come with a rag and they'll wipe the table, and then they'll go to another table with the same rag and wipe that table. Then they'll go to another table with the same rag and wipe that table. Are they actually cleaning anything? No, all they're doing is just spreading the dirt around. So you better be careful of any places that do this. And if you go to any of these places, again, protect yourself at all times. Number two, the clientele. When you go to cheap gyms, people generally, the people in there, the users, they do not practice good hygiene, good etiquette, or good manners. All right, this is the reason why you see people arguing over the damn sauna in LA Fitness. Notice you don't see these kind of videos at an Equinox. It costs $200 a month because the type of people who come in there, they don't have these kind of things, and nobody's pulling out their damn phone to get a viral moment for it. Make sure you like the live, please. Like the live as y'all are coming in. That's number two, is the clientele. All right, if you go to a place that is cheap to get into, understand you're dealing with a whole lot of other people who are going to that place because it's cheap to get into. Doesn't mean you're a cheap person, but when you go to cheap places, you're going to deal with cheap people. Just how it works. The third reason is the shenanigans. So let me tell y'all this story. Now, this one you wouldn't know unless you've been on the inside. So I used to work at this gym in Philadelphia in this area called Society Hill, which is not far from South Street. If any of you are familiar with Philadelphia, Society Hill is like right above South Philadelphia. So, and Society Hill is a relatively small area, actually very nice, actually very affluent area as well. But right next to Society Hill is this area that I don't know what its official name is, but it was affectionately called the Gayborhood, not the neighborhood, the Gayborhood, because a bunch of gay people lived in this area. And I didn't know anything about this. I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised there, didn't know anything about the Gayborhood. So I go get the job in Society Hill, which again, next door to the Gayborhood. My manager was this white guy who happened to be gay. He didn't have a job because he was gay. He just happened to be gay. And I'm a salesperson. So we had like 5 salespeople. He's the sales manager. So every day we're having meetings, et cetera. And Gary was a good guy, cool guy. So one day, Gary, I see him walking out of because the locker rooms are like right next to my sales office. I see Gary walking out of the locker room. He had this distressed look on his face. And you know how white people, when they get distressed, their face turns red. So his face was all red. He's walking out of the locker room. And I'm looking at him, and he has this distressed look on his face. He doesn't say anything to me, but later on, as I'm talking to him, he tells me why he was looking distressed. Here's what happened. Gary found out because he was gay. He's like plugged into the gay community, and he actually lived in the Gayborhood. He found out, check this out, that there's like this chat message board for gay guys to talk to each other, or apps or whatever it was. This is years ago before social media. This was at the beginning of social media. Turns out that gay guys had it was this known thing that every Friday afternoon around 2:00 was a pretty quiet time of the day in the gym. So any of you ever go into a gym throughout the days, 2:00, like anytime between about after lunch, but before the evening rush, that like 1:00 to about 4:00 time period, the gym is relatively quiet. And if you want to get in there and not be bothered, that's a good time to go in there. So about 2:00, gay guys who had memberships to our gym, they would come to the gym. They would go in the locker room because we had a steam room and a locker room, or a sauna. I think it was a sauna, not a steam room. So a steam room is like the moist air, and the sauna is like the dry air. And a bunch of gay dudes would meet in the steam room, and they would be doing things that you ain't supposed to be doing in the gym. And the way that Gary found out, again, is because he was a gay man. That's how he knew about it. So he saw it on the message board. He's like, wait a minute, I work at that gym. So then Friday, 2:00, he goes in there. He kind of breaks it up and kicks the guys out and revokes their memberships. And I'm saying all that to say these kind of shenanigans happen in low budget gyms. People go and meet and do shit in those places that they're not supposed to be doing. And the last one is just your personal health, as I already explained to you all. For those of you who do not know, any place that is warm and moist, a swimming pool, a shower, a sauna, a steam room, a jacuzzi or hot tub, any of these places, especially if you use one in a public space, is one thing if you do it in your own house. But you go to any public space or you're using one of these places where there is heat and moisture combined, these are breeding grounds for fungi and bacteria. So if you want to get some type of infection in your skin or some type of sickness, go to one of these places recklessly and don't protect yourself. And that's exactly what's going to happen to you, because they're breeding grounds for fungi and bacteria. I told you that their cleaning standards are extremely low. And the type of people who are going in there, their hygiene standards are often low. And if you're going to go to one of these places, I would suggest, if you got a membership to LA Fitness right now, do not use the shower. Take a shower when you get home. Do not get in the pool. If they got a hot tub, damn sure don't get in the hot tub. Do not get in the hot tub. Hot tub is a breeding ground for infection. You want to get an infection, go get in the hot tub at a public place that they don't clean the shit properly. Do not get in the sauna and don't get in the steam room. Don't go in any of those places. If you're going to get in one of those places, do it at somewhere that's more high ticket and more high end. Why? Because first of all, the clientele practices better hygiene and manners. Secondly, the people who clean it are checked up on better. It's not this perfunctory cleaning with this cheap shit. They do real cleaning and they are really checked on. They have high standards. So if you're going to use it, you can rest assured it's more likely that you're in a place that is actually sanitary. So again, this is not even the topic here today, but I was and definitely use flip flops in the shower. Yes, if you're going to use a shower in a public place in which other people who you don't know are also using the shower, absolutely have some type of footwear in the shower. I don't care where you are. You could be at Equinox, it costs $300. You still should use some flip flops in the shower because it's like 20 other men or women who you don't know who have stepped in there. You have no idea what they got on their feet, what they have on, what they're washing off of their body, and you don't want to be standing in that while you're taking a shower. So any of you who didn't know these things, all right, now you know. Stay out of these big box retailers, anything that involves moisture and heat. And also, even if you're just lifting weights, wipe off the material, wipe off the stuff before you touch it. Wipe off the benches, bring a towel. If you're going to lay down and do a bench press, put a towel down on the bench before you do your lifting. I don't care what it looks like. Because again, I know what the cleaning standards are in these places. And I know how the people are in these places. And again, this is not even a damn topic. So let's get into the actual topic here today. What we're going to talk about is trans athletes in sports. So we know that this is Pride Month. So this just happens to be the topic here today. It's not because it's Pride Month, but something that just happened recently. If y'all didn't know about this, in the state of California, which everybody knows that California is a deeply blue and progressive state. We got any California residents in here? Put California in the comments. Any of you live in California? So we know California is a very blue state, which means they tend to vote Democrat, been voting Democrat for as long as I've been alive, at least. And they're a very progressive state, which is even more far than just being Democrat. A recent high school track and field event, they crowned a transgender athlete, this guy's name, A.B. Hernandez, as the girls' high jump champion. So, Marky Man, you in California? I'm sorry. All right. I'm sorry to everybody who's in California. So, A.B. Hernandez won the girls' high jump championship. Now, A.B. was born a boy, but is now a girl. Okay, they won the championship. Now, what happened is Hernandez, this is in they say the section where they won. It sparked the national debate. But instead of addressing the controversy, here's what the California, what does CIF stand for? Whatever it is, California Interscholastic, whatever they call themselves. This is just the scholastic governing body over the sports. What they did is they decided to issue an additional trophy to the top biologically female athlete. And basically, so they gave a trophy to the person who won and beat everybody, which is this boy who became a girl. Then they created a second trophy and said, we're going to give that to the girl who came in first amongst the girls. So instead of actually addressing the issue, all they did was they kind of both sided the issue. So they gave the main trophy to the boy who won. Then they gave another trophy to the top girl. And what is the fucking girls competition? This happened in California just this past week. If any of you didn't know about that. All right. That's what happened in California just this past week. They didn't address the actual issue. So this move and others like it around the country, we're just using this as an example. This raises serious questions about fairness. And I'm not even a big fan of the word fair, but in this context, I am. Integrity and competition. I'm a big fan of that word and what it really means to quote unquote protect women's sports. So let's break this down because this is a very interesting conversation on several fronts and from several angles. Let me first introduce myself for those who don't know me. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 41 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I own this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. You can find out more about how to work with me and what we're doing by going to that link. If you're on TikTok, you see that link, workonyourgame.live. That's the link in my bio on TikTok. On that link, you can see anything I'm going to reference here. So my books, my courses, my coaching, speaking, the YouTube channel where the replays to all these lives are at. You can find all of that at that link, workonyourgame.live. So you want to get one of my books free, like the third day, you can see right here, Overseas Basketball Blueprint here, the Sales Discipline System, you can see here, Mirror Motivation, the Black Spine, you can see over there. You can get any one of those books for free. Just go to workonyourgame.live. It's the link in my profile bio, or just send me a DM. My assistant will get at you and let you know where you need to go. So this is a really interesting thing because I don't pay attention to high school sports or even college sports for that matter, but I do pay attention to professional sports. And one of the things that we've seen when it comes to women in sports, especially over the last 10 years, is you hear a lot of conversation from the women and their advocates of, well, we should have the same facilities, we should get equal pay, et cetera, compared to what? Compared to the men. So this first started with the U.S. women's national team in soccer, and their whole thing is equal pay, equal pay, equal pay. We should make the same amount that the men make. When the problem with that argument was and still is that men's soccer generates a whole lot more money than women's soccer. So if you're not making the same amount of money, that makes perfect sense because men's soccer generates more money. So even if the men got a smaller piece of a pie, the pie is so big that they still end up with more money than the women, even if they had a bigger piece of the pie. Then the women try to conflate the argument, try to make it into, well, it's just the percentages, et cetera, et cetera. No matter how you slice it, they were not going to be appeased. They were trying to be appeased. They were not going to be appeased because it's not a big enough pie for them to make more money, on top of many other mitigating factors, such as the women's national team is playing against a bunch of women's national teams who ain't even that good and don't have the luxury of playing and training year-round the way women in America do. They're playing against women who don't even have those kind of rights. Of course, you're going to kick their asses. Why the women's team is kicking everybody's ass in soccer. But anyway, to move on, also on the soccer team, you had, what was that woman's name? The most annoying woman on it. What was that woman's name? The annoying chick from the women's national team. What was that woman's name? The woman who got married, she married Sue Bird, who plays in the WNBA, who retired recently from the WNBA. What's that woman's name from the women's soccer team? Because it's something that she said that was really stupid that I'm going to point out, but I want to mention her name before I do it. Somebody tell me the name of that woman from the women's national teams. I believe she's retired now, but she, with the purple hair, short purple hair. Yes, Rapinoe. Yes, that woman. Megan Rapinoe, that chick who married Sue Bird. So she gave a speech where she literally said out of her mouth, a woman can do everything that a man can do. All right, that's completely fucking ridiculous. No, a woman cannot do everything a man can do. If a man went to break down the door at Megan Rapinoe's house, she can't physically fight that man the way that a man can physically fight that man. So just on that alone, she's wrong. But she went out and said this, and she has supported this woman who was talking about equal pay for women in playing sports. She was spearheading this whole equal pay thing. She is okay with transgender athletes playing sports. She has co-signed this, which makes no sense. Why would you co-sign this? What if somebody my size, I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall. What if I go decide to play soccer? I decide I'm a woman. I will be kicking her ass all up and down the field. And she's okay with this. Now, why does she seem to be okay with this? Really, she's okay with it because she's retired now. So she wouldn't have to deal with it. So she's okaying it because it sounds good, while at the same time, she doesn't have to deal with it because it's not coming to her front door because she doesn't play anymore. But she was saying some of this ridiculous shit. Also, on another note, it's not about the soccer team. The WNBA, this year, they're having their collective bargaining agreement is expiring, and they're going to negotiate a new deal. I guarantee the biggest sticking point in this deal is how much money do the women get. The women are going to demand more money, even though the WNBA is not earning more money or not earning more profit. Excuse me, they're not turning more profit, but they are going to demand more money, and they're probably going to get it. Now, how that's going to work? Oh, the reason it wouldn't work in a normal business sense, but it will work in the sense of what's happening with the WNBA because they're being funded by the NBA, and the NBA will never let the WNBA go out of business because that would be a horrible PR black eye for the NBA to let the women's league go out of business, even though if it was standing on its own, it'd be out of business already. But continuing, this whole thing of women talking about sports, they've often been comparing themselves to the men and saying we deserve everything that the men deserve, while at the same time, many of these women, same women, have been a very conspicuously silent on this concept of a boy deciding that he's a girl and going and playing sports. Why are they so silent on this? Why are they so quiet? And can y'all please like the live? If you are watching, whatever app you're watching on, like the live. Okay, like the live. We had 10,000 on TikTok. Can we get to 15, please? Thank you to the moderators for letting people know about this. They are about letting them know about liking the live. So they've been eerily quiet on this. The women will speak up really loud and really boldly when it comes to comparing what the women have to what the men have. But none of them is saying too much about this whole concept of what is fair in sports. They talk about fair when it comes to the money. I don't hear anybody talking about fair when it comes to what happens on the field or on the court. I.e., I can think of somebody like Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade publicly, and I don't even speak about people's minor children, but Dwayne Wade put his minor child on the front line. He put his minor child on the front line. I believe Dwayne Wade has maybe 3 kids. I think he has a younger one who's a girl. But he had, when I first heard of Dwayne Wade, he had 2 boys. He had one who's probably in his 20s now. He was playing basketball. He wasn't very talented. He tried to go straight to the G League without playing college ball inexplicably because he wasn't that talented. Didn't make it in the G League. And the last I heard, he was playing in that Africa League that the NBA sponsors. His oldest son's just not very talented. Then he had another son who decided that he wasn't a son anymore. He decided he was a daughter. And this is the one who got all the attention. A lot of you don't even know about Dwayne Wade's older son because he never became famous, I guess. But Dwayne Wade's younger son now calling daughter, they became famous and they're on covers of magazines and all this shit because they decided that they were a girl, and this was paraded and championed. And Dwayne Wade is still one of my favorite players to this day, but that was ridiculous and is still ridiculous. And I'm bringing that person up because let's say Dwayne Wade's child, who is calling himself a girl, decides that he wants to play basketball. It doesn't look like it from what I've seen from Dwayne Wade's child. It doesn't look like they're athletically inclined. But let's just say that they got the genes of Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was a pretty good basketball player. Let's say that child decides they want to play basketball. They go all the way up to the ranks and they make it to the WNBA, and they're out there dunking on people like Dwayne Wade. Because remember, this person has the genetics of a boy and the genetics of Dwayne Wade, who was a very athletic basketball player. Could you imagine what the WNBA would look like if Dwayne Wade's child, with his genetics, is in the WNBA because this person is identifying as a girl? Hey, they're supposed to allow this. What would your favorite WNBA players be saying about that? So they got a lot to say about race. They got a lot to say about the same pay as men. What would they have to say about that if that happened? Be an interesting thing, right? And who knows? Maybe it'll still happen. I mean, Dwayne Wade's child, last I checked, was what? Like early teens? I don't know what the age of that child is or was. But anyway, that's some ridiculous shit. The Dwayne Wade, everything else you did on the basketball court, I'm a fan. But that, I am not a fan. And your wife, what's his wife's name? Gabrielle Union. I read her book. Not a fan either. But anyway, fairness in sports. I don't hear any women or advocates for women's sports who say the same things about the pay and the facilities and we should have the same things. Men, they don't say anything about this. They're real quiet on this one. And then this whole thing about protect women. Is this whole thing protect all women, believe all women, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to the situation of a boy deciding that he's a girl and playing in a girl sport, these same people, again, there are women out there. Let me be clear. There are women out there, and I'm going to answer all questions and comments at the end, by the way. There are women out there who are very strong on this whole transgender athletes, a boy playing girl sports and getting away with it. Very strong on this. Megyn Kelly, for example, talks about this a lot. Candace Owens has talked about it. You have the woman, the swimmer, Riley Gaines, who basically has built her career on this advocacy for girls only girls playing in girl sports after she ended up tied for fifth at the national championship with a man who could look like a man, calling himself a woman, and the NCAA went right along with this. The NCAA is the biggest governing body when it comes to the genders of sports, and they just sat there and let this happen. And Riley Gaines built the whole career off it. So I'm not saying there are no women talking about this. What I'm saying is the women who talk the most shit about look what men have compared to what we have, those women say nothing when it comes to there's a boy in the girl's bathroom. All right, they don't say anything about that, and I'm using that as a metaphor. Why don't they say anything about this? Why are they so quiet? I'm just trying to figure this out. We're going to break it down here today. So some people argue, and by the way, I'm going to answer all questions and comments at the end. Can we get the 20,000 likes on TikTok, please? And do I mean feminists? I guess you can call them feminists. Let me think about that, but you're probably right. Some people argue that this whole thing, let's say come up with 2 first place trophies, one for the overall winner, which was a boy, masquerading as a girl, and one for the girls only winner. This is state of California. This is just cowardice by the state of California. And I'm predicting if things were to happen today, that your governor, Mr. Newsom, he's going to be the Democratic nominee for 2028. That's what it's looking like to me. He would win the primary and he would be the nominee for 2028. This is the guy that's going to be running for president in 2028. And as a matter of fact, I think that's a scary thing for America, but also, actually, I say that's a good thing. I'm not a fan of what he's allowing in the state of California, because I don't think he's going to win. He's not going to win a national election because he's going to be held accountable for that. And if he runs, this will be used against him. This very much will be used against him. It's not going to be a main issue, but it's going to be used against him because it's a ridiculous thing that some people are saying this is inclusive. This is one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of this concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Inclusion is not what sports is about. Sports is about exclusion. Sports is inherently exclusive. What does exclusive mean? When somebody says something is exclusive, what are they telling you? They're telling you that not everybody can access this. Not everybody can come into this room. Not everybody can do what we're doing here, right? Isn't that what exclusive means? If I say I got a VIP exclusive event happening, what does that mean? That means I'm probably limiting the number of people who can come to this event. I'm limiting the number of tickets I'm going to sell. Exclusivity means not everybody can access it. Sports is exclusive because you have to compete to win. You have to compete to get on the team. Not everybody's on the football team. That's the reason the football team is valuable. Not everybody can be on the basketball team. Not everybody gets to stand on the podium and get a medal. Why do we not value participation trophies? Because everybody gets one. They're inclusive. Sports is exclusive. Anytime you try to bring inclusivity into an area that is inherently exclusive, you are watering down the entire product, and it means nothing. This is why you can't have inclusivity in sports. In sports, if you're a boy, you play on the boys sports. If you're a girl, you play the girl sports. If you're a boy who is confused and you decide you're a girl, you got to compete as a boy. Why? Because sports are about physical competition, and boys are designed differently from girls. So if you are born as a boy, I don't even want to get into the splitting hairs over the hormones and all of that. If you are born as a boy, you have to compete against boys. You want to play sports? Okay. You got to compete against boys. Why? Because males are genetically have things that women do not have. A man is generally bigger, stronger, faster than a female. We all understand this. Genetically and physically, men have physical advantages over women. This is the reason why men dominate society. Because if push came to shove, women cannot defeat men in hand-to-hand physical combat. Can't do it. So how are you going to allow a boy, someone who was born as a boy, to compete against girls in sports and then act like it's not happening and say, well, this is inclusive? No. Well, actually, yes, it is inclusive, but that's the problem. See, the problem is not the concept of inclusivity. The problem is that you're trying to bring it into something that's not supposed to be inclusive. That's the problem with the inclusivity. Is not that you're lying. Is that's not what's supposed to happen here. If I have let's say I go to the Miami Heat game and I decide I want to buy an executive suite for the game. And they tell me when I'm on the phone with the sales staff from the Miami Heat, where they play, the Kaseya Center, as it's called now, they say, okay, Mr. Baldwin, you can reserve the suite. It'll cost you $10,000 and you can have up to 20 people inside the suite. And I say, all right, cool. And I pay for the suite. And now I got the suite. We go to the game. And I decide to bring 40 people with me. And I say to them, hey, I'm the one who reserved the suite. I'm Mr. Baldwin. And I got 40 people with me to come into the suite. Well, what are they going to say to me? Are the Miami Heat sales team going to say, great, we're inclusive here, so we're just going to let you stuff as many people as you can into the suite? No, what they're going to say is, hey, you pay for a suite that allows up to 20 people. You can't bring 40 people into the suite because you only pay for 20. Now, if you want another suite, we can sell you the suite next door, but it's going to be another $10,000. Maybe they'll give me a discount. We'll give you a discount. You can get the other one for $8,000 since you already paid $10,000 for one. But they're not just going to allow me to include as many people as possible. The Miami Heat arena, let's say it seats 20,000 people. What if 40,000 people show up to the front doors trying to get into the game? They're not going to say, well, we're inclusive, so we're just going to let everybody in, even though you don't have a ticket. No, if you don't have a ticket, you can't come in. They only sell enough tickets to fill the seats. So inclusivity, I understand the concept, but inclusivity only matters in certain places. Maybe in preschool. In the sports world, there is no inclusivity. It's exclusive. Why do we look up to athletes? Why are athletes looked at as celebrities? Because they can run fast, jump high, yes. Because they generally are known for making a lot of money, yes. Because they can physically do things that most people can't do, yes. Because they have followed their dreams to do what they always wanted to do as a kid, and they actually made a career out of it, yes. And the biggest reason why athletes are looked up to is the same reason that somebody who has 1 million followers on the internet is looked up to. Same reason that someone's noted as a billionaire is looked up to. The same reason that the president is looked up to. The reason that these people are looked up to is because you are doing something that not everybody can do. That's what draws attention. When you do something not everybody else can do, you stand out. The exclusivity of what you do, what you can do, what you have done, what you have access to is what makes you special amongst the masses of people. Where as the average everyday person is not special. Why? Because you don't possess, you're not showing, or you haven't done, or you don't have anything that makes you different than the average person. When you have something that the average person doesn't have, or you can do, or you have done, or there's something people know about you that separates you from everybody else, that exclusivity is what makes you somebody. So this whole concept of putting inclusion in the sports is ridiculous because, again, that waters down the very concept. Sports is competitive, meaning it's one against the other or team against team, man against man, player versus player. And what makes sports is that not everybody can win. Everybody can't go. Somebody's going to go home without a trophy and they're going to be crying, and that's okay. Use the energy from that sadness and disappointment, that anger, that frustration to get better, work on your game, and you come back next year and you win a trophy. That's how it's supposed to go. Kobe Bryant told the story. His first year back in Philadelphia after his dad retired from playing sports overseas, he played in the summer league basketball league. He didn't score any points the whole season. Not one game, the whole season. He didn't score any points. He took the disappointment and the embarrassment of scoring no points. He worked on his game, came back next year, he did a little better. And then he eventually became Kobe Bryant. So this whole concept of including people in sports, and I'm going to answer questions and comments at the end, by the way. Please like the live. We're at 24,000. We're healthy here. Can we get to 30,000 on TikTok, please? This ignores the biological differences that give males a competitive edge, as I already said. Any sport that requires strength, speed, or explosiveness, men have a biological advantage. And if you are born as a male, those biological advances are baked into your genetic code. You can't undo that with any type of pharmaceuticals. You can't do that. I can't even say certain words on here, I've learned. So that's baked into your genetic code. Dwayne Wade's child has it baked into their genetic code, the genes of that child's mother and Dwayne Wade, their father. So if they decide to play basketball, they're going to have some physical tools on the girls' basketball team. They're going to have some physical tools that the average girl does not have. And there's nothing that girl can do. There's no amount of training they can do is going to fix that. These are biological differences, inherent differences, even things that you wouldn't even think it would make a difference between a man and a woman. You notice in a sport like race car driving, men are better than women in race car driving. Now, why would a man just inherently be better than a woman in race car driving? Men's reaction time, men's instinctive ability to make decisions on the fly and under pressure is better than a woman's inherently. Genetically, biologically, there is a difference. This is the reason why you don't see women and men. Well, you do see, if you see a woman in race cars racing with men, notice there's only a handful. It might be one or two. There's one woman racer who I can name. Her name's Danica Patrick. You remember her? Danica Patrick. She's the one woman I can remember. And I don't watch race car driving, but is there any other women? Are there any other women in that? I mean, all it is driving a car. All right. You look out the window, you see women driving cars all the time. You go to it. I went to the gym this morning. There was a full parking lot of cars. There's a bunch of women driving those cars. How is it that men dominate race car driving? Why? I mean, you ain't got to run fast to drive a race car. You don't have to have big muscles to drive a race car. Why is it that men dominate race car driving? It's because men have biological advantages even behind the wheel of a vehicle that women don't have. And there's some jokes you can put in there, but we won't do those here today. Moving on. Awarding an extra trophy seems like a fair compromise to acknowledge both parties. This is what people on the other side of the conversation would say. That, hey, if we just give both trophies, that's a fair compromise. So now we can include the boy who has become a girl, and we can make sure that the girl still gets a trophy. And I say to that, this is a cowardly move because you're avoiding the real issue. All right, this is why Western society is collapsing. Things like this is why Western society is collapsing. What do I mean by that? When I've talked about this in detail, why Western society is falling apart, and it's always because of what the men do. Societies do not grow or fall based on women. They grow or fall based on men. And when men are doing their jobs properly, societies build and they expand and they flourish. When men are not doing their jobs, societies fall apart. One of the reasons why Western society is falling apart because a lot of men are now acting like women. What a woman would do in a situation like this is say, well, let's strike a compromise because we don't want to disappoint anybody. I'm not saying every woman. We don't want to disappoint everybody. We want everyone to feel good. We want to include everybody. These are feminine ways of looking at conflict. The feminine way of looking at a conflict is we want to appease everybody, want to find some compromise and make sure that everybody's happy. We don't want to disappoint anyone. Again, that's a feminine look at a conflict. A masculine look at the conflict is let's resolve the conflict. We resolve the conflict by saying, okay, these are the rules. Here's what's objectively true. Here's the black and white of the issue. And this is the decision. And if you're disappointed, so what? Because this is the decision. And these are the rules that we're going by. And if you're disappointed by the rules, well, you need to go find somewhere else. You need to go find a different place where the rules are different that can appease you. But these are the rules here. If you want to be here, here are the rules we're playing by. If you don't like the rules, go somewhere else. That's the masculine way of approaching it. Gavin Newsom, and he's going to get the blame for this. He didn't make the decision, but the state of California, whoever's in charge here, it was probably a man, I would guess. It's probably a man. All right, this is a cowardly way of avoiding the issue. Let's just make another trophy. So now you're watering down a trophy. What did I just tell you all? Sports is exclusive. The reason why the trophy matters is because not everybody gets the fucking trophy. That's why a trophy is a trophy. The NBA Finals is about to start tomorrow from when I'm recording this. The value of the NBA Finals being the NBA Finals is that one team's going to go home with the trophy and the championship and the glory, and the other team's pretty much going to be forgotten because they didn't win. That's what it is. But if you just keep making more trophies, let's just say they say, well, hey, the OKC Thunder, they won the championship. They got that trophy, but we don't want the Pacers to feel bad. So let's just make another trophy and give them one too. So both teams get a trophy. All right, now you have just watered down the very value of the competition. then now everybody gets a trophy. And while what we're talking about here is not necessarily a participation trophy, what we're talking about here is a different way of watering down the value by saying that if you're a boy and you decide that you're a girl, you couldn't win that trophy playing against the boys. So you came over here to play against the girls, and now you got a way of getting the trophy and validating yourself. This is bullshit. There's no way that this should be allowed. There's no way that this should be happening. And the state of California is leading the way, but I guarantee you a whole bunch of other states that are blue and progressive, they're going to follow and they're going to do the same thing. If you're born a male and you compete as a girl, you're not on a level playing field. The girls are no longer on a level playing field playing against you. And it's not even so much, even though I just told you that there are inherent genetic advantages that a boy has, someone born as a boy has playing against girls. It's not even so much if the boy wins. Let's just say this boy came in 3rd place or 5th place, like the Leah Thomas with Riley Gaines situation many years ago, or the boy came in 20th place. It's not so much that the boy has to be winning for it to be a story. This became a story, and I found out about it because the boy won. But let's say the boy came in 8th place, not even a place to get a trophy. It's not about whether they got the trophy or not. It's the principle that he shouldn't be on the field in the first place. I don't care what place he came. He could have came in last. He shouldn't be on the field or on the track or on the court because that is a biological boy, should not be competing against girls, even if he didn't win. And this is what people say with the Riley Gaines thing. I see a lot of people using this same frame against Riley. For those of you who don't know who she is, she was a female swimmer, a pretty good swimmer, who came in tied for, she's the one who has this whole movement now around protecting girls in girls sports. And she goes and speaks at colleges and she gets protested against, et cetera, by these LGBTQ supporters. And what happened with her originally is she was in the national championships for swimming. And she came in 5th place for the championship, national championship. And there are 5 trophies. 1st through 5th place all get a trophy. So what happened is she came in tied for 5th with Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas used to be known as Matthew William Thomas. And it was a man who was, until his junior year of college, was on the male swim team and was ranked like 400th in the nation. He decides he's a woman. And now he's on the girls swim team at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, where I'm from. And it does really well on the women's side, all the way to the point of competing for a national championship. Didn't beat all the girls, but came in 5th place, tied for 5th. What happened at the actual event was that the NCAA hadn't planned on a tie because they measured this stuff down to like the millisecond. And there was a tie between Matthew, William, Leah Thomas, and Riley Gaines. They only had one 5th place trophy. So what they said to Riley Gaines, hey, what we'll do is we'll go make a replica of the trophy. NCAA got the money. They can make another trophy. We'll make a replica of the 5th place trophy and we'll send one to your house. But the one trophy that we do have, because we want to have all the winners stand and take a picture together, we're going to let Leah Thomas take the picture with the trophy and they get to take that trophy home. And you got to wait till we mail you the other trophy for you to get your trophy. And this is on that basis of that happening is how Riley Gaines built her, I guess you can call it now, her career and her business around this whole concept of this is bullshit. We're not going to allow men to compete in women's sports. So and you can see there's a picture online of Leah Thomas, and let me see if I can find that picture. Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines. And by the way, there was a rule that was just passed about how Leah is not going to be able to compete in the Olympics. But I want to see if I can find this picture. Here's the picture right here. And Riley is holding something here. I don't know what this is or what they did. Maybe it's just a trophy, but this is a story that I was told that I believe I heard Riley say that she got to have her. So here's Riley Gaines and Leah Thomas. So that's, you can guess which is which. Okay. So Leah Thomas is this, and she's holding something there, but this is the story that I was told that she would get a replica. So maybe she's holding somebody else's trophy in this photo, and she's looking at the man, and this is a funny picture because it looks like she's kind of pissed off. And let me see if I can zoom in and find out what she's holding in her hand. But anyway, she swam at Kentucky. He swam at the University of Pennsylvania. And so at 5th place, see in the 5th place spot, they're both standing there because they both came in 5th. And she got pissed off about this, and she went and did this they did this whole thing. And Hold My Diet said, no, she came in first. No, she did not come in first. She came in 5th. That is verified fact. She came in 5th place, 5th in the nation in this race. And what people say when they're attacking Riley Gaines, anytime she comes out and says anything, there's going to be a bunch of comments of people saying, oh, well, you only have a career because you came in 5th place and you're not even that good, et cetera, et cetera. 5th in the nation is pretty damn high. 5th in the nation in a solo sport. And again, the point is, even the person who came in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all women who came in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, they should have a problem with this too. Even though they beat this man who was swimming as a woman, they beat him. They should still have a problem with the fact that he's in the competition because it's a girls' competition. That's a man. This guy has a bat and balls. He should not be in the competition, period. And the NCAA, run by men, the people at the top of the organizations for the swimming, run by men, a bunch of parents there, a bunch of them men sat there and allowed this shit to take place. That's the part that's crazy. I'm not even calling out the women. I'm calling out the men. Because if the men said, no, hey, you have a bat and balls, Mr. Thomas, you're not competing in women's sports, and that's it, and there would be no discussion. It'd be over. And again, I don't even put this on the women. I say this over and over again. Whenever societies collapse or organizations collapse or anything is failing, community fails, it's always because of something that the man did. Now, it doesn't mean that the man necessarily can fix it or has to fix it, but he takes ownership of the fact that it collapsed. He got to take ownership of that. If a relationship falls flat between a man and a woman, the man takes ownership of the relationship falling apart. Because if the man decided it's going to stay there, then he could probably make it work. But if he decides not, then he got to take ownership of the fact that it collapsed, which is okay. If it collapses, it collapses. But just know that that's on the man. That's not on the woman. So California, what some say, they're protecting students' quote unquote right to identify under its progressive laws. Well, I agree with that. They are doing that. The right to identify. In other words, if you're a boy who is walking around as a girl, but you're able to sell yourself well enough as a girl that people don't even know that you're actually a boy, that you don't have to tell anybody. That's pretty much what they're saying. The right to identify. What did I say about that? Okay. The problem is that can lead to other problems later on that ain't too good. All right. There are many stories. So, for example, there's a story of there was a guy who used to be in these videos. So back in the day, since Diddy's on trial, we'll use Diddy as an example. Diddy had an artist named Notorious B.I.G. Most of you know that. Notorious B.I.G. had a video for a song called One More Chance, one of his most popular records. In that video, there's a girl in there who is like at the bar in the video, music video, where Big walks over and he starts talking to the girl, and she was talking to this rapper named Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes gets mad, walk away, and now Biggie is talking to the girl. That girl was also the same girl. She was also in this video called Flavor in Your Ear, the remix, which is a very popular record as well. Remix done by Diddy, a.k.a. Puffy. And that girl, I didn't know this. I remember seeing those videos. I didn't know this. That girl was actually a man. That girl was a man. So when LL Cool J in the Flavor in Your Ear remix, he starts the verse by saying, he, she. He says it twice. He says, he, she. I didn't know what he was saying. Nobody really knew what he was talking about when he said that, but he was referring to that girl. He, she. That's what he was saying in the video. And this is back in this is like 1996. This is a long time ago. I didn't know this. There's this guy named Choke No Joke he's a very well-known hip-hop guy. He has a YouTube channel where he tells these stories. He's told a lot of stories. He told the story of Carmelo Anthony and Lala Anthony was the funny one. He told some Mary J. Blige stories. He's told many stories that are very interesting. If you listen to any of his live streams, I've listened to a few. And anyway, he tells this story. And that girl who was a guy, here's the reason why I'm bringing this up. I'm bringing this up because that girl, because we're talking about the right to identify, meaning if you can get away with people thinking you're a girl when you're actually a boy and you don't tell anybody, then you don't have to tell anyone if you don't want to. So here's what happened. That girl was dating a guy who thought he was dating a girl. They get into the bedroom and get intimate. The guy realizes that this is not a girl. It's actually a guy. He takes that person's life, and that person's in jail to this very day. The girl, quote unquote, is dead. The guy who did it, he's incarcerated. So yes, the right to identify, fine. But there are some situations where you not identifying could lead to dire consequences for everybody involved. So this same state, California, can we get up to 40,000 likes, please, on TikTok? The same state, California, is undermining the original intent of Title IX. Does everybody know what Title IX is? All right, Title IX, let me see if I can get a clear, sharp definition of Title IX. Give me a sharp definition of Title IX, the rule about women's sports in the United States of America. Is basically, I'm giving you my interpretation of Title IX. It was designed to make sure that women had separate and equal access to play sports in the United States of America as a general rule. But let me read what a more professional definition of it is a federal civil rights law in the United States enacted as part of the Education Amendments of 1972. The definition is the following, quote, Title IX prohibits sex-based discrimination in any education program or activity that receives federal financial assistance, including athletics. It requires schools and colleges to provide equal opportunities, funding, and treatment for male and female students in sports and other educational programs. So this is the way that the law is written. And in simple terms, if a school receives federal money, which a lot of them do, they have to treat male and female athletes fairly. That means teams, facilities, scholarships, and support, though not necessarily identically. Okay, so they draw a line between fair and identical. So it doesn't mean that just because the football team they have a budget of $20 million that the lacrosse team also gets a budget of $20 million. It doesn't mean that. This has to be fair. And fair is a very subjective term. Fair is based on who's in charge. The whole point of Title IX, though, is that you have to have sport. If you got sports for men, you got to have sports for women. All right, Title IX, women's sports exist because of Title IX, because it trickled down to other areas. That you got a men's basketball team, you got to have a women's basketball team. You got a men's baseball team, have women's softball. Now, again, it doesn't go to every sport because there's not a lot of women who want to play, let's say, tackle football, so you don't have a women's football team. But the whole point of Title IX is to create an outlet for women to play sports the same way you have an outlet for men to play sports. So Title IX is being violated here when you allow a boy to go play in a girl's sport, because Title IX was designed to create sports that were specifically earmarked for females. But now you're letting men participate. That doesn't make any sense. It was supposed to be for women. Now you're letting the man just say, oh, well, I identify as a woman, so now I get to play in that sport. That's a ridiculous premise. But at the same time, there are adults out there. There are adults out there who would argue and come up with really scholarly, professional sounding arguments as to why it's okay. It is not okay on principle. Yes, you can come up with some tricky language that makes it sound good, especially if you went to college and you are good with words. You could come up with some tricky language that makes it sound good and split hairs on biology and genetics and hormones and all of that shit. The bottom line is, if you were born with a bat and balls as a male, you are not allowed to play in female sports ever. I don't care how many pharmaceuticals you take. I don't care what you take, what operations you have undergone, you can't do it. Now, some say one of the arguments against my stance is, well, how would you know? What if there's a boy who has become a girl and they present themselves so much as a girl that you can't even tell that they used to be a boy? What do you do in that situation? That's a good question. It's a tricky question. How do you figure that out? And I don't know if anyone's come up with a clean answer to this yet, because it needs a clean answer. One that's simple enough that anyone can understand that here's what we're going to do. Because it's not like you can go and lift up the skirt of every athlete in the locker room and say, okay, let me make sure you're a girl before you play in the sport. You can't do that. Or do you have to have some type of genetic testing? Or if somebody just questions it, do we get to send that person to testing to make sure? I think that might be a fair way of solving that. That if anyone raises the red flag and says, I think that one right there, I'm not sure that's actually a girl, that person has to submit the testing. I think that's fair. Why do I think that's fair? Here's why I think that's fair. Because they do testing for pharmaceuticals, right? You got to do a test for, are you smoking something you're not supposed to be smoking, taking something you're not supposed to take, or are you taking any type of performance-enhancing materials? They have tests for that. So they should have tests for this. Why not? You're already testing. You might as well test for this too. I think that's the simple way to solve this. Anybody want to play on a girls' team? That's part of the testing. I don't think you need to have this problem on a boys' team, because a girl decides she's going to play in boys' sports. Notice that doesn't happen too often, because the girl's going to get her ass kicked. She goes and plays a boys' sport. She has no chance of winning. If she ain't beating the girls, there ain't no way she's beating the boys. So they don't have to do it with men, but they do need to do it with females. And I think that's a fair way of looking at it. So this same state already mentioned that. Advocates are saying that this is about supporting mental health and inclusion for trans youth. All right, this is some feminine energy angle. Say this is about supporting mental health. No, I don't care about your mental health. If you're a boy and you decide that you're a girl and you say me playing sports supports my mental health, I say, well, your mental health ain't getting supported over here because you ain't playing. If you want to play, you got to play against the boys. You can play sports, right? And the whole, you said you want to play sports. Okay, the boys team is over there. Go play. If you lose, you lose. Now, is it part of your mental health that you have to play as a girl? Why? Why is that part of your mental health? You just want to play a sport. You didn't say you got to play with the girls for it to be your mental health. What is playing with the girls? How does playing with the girls help your mental health? You just want to play basketball. Okay, the boys' basketball practice is over there. The girls' practice is over there. You're a boy. You got to practice with the boys. That's it. This is not optional if you want to play a sport. And inclusion. Again, we already discussed this inclusion concept. Sports is not about inclusion. Sports is about exclusion. If you're not good enough to make the team, you don't get included. You get excluded. You got to sit in the bleachers while the team is playing because you weren't good enough to make the team. That's the way it works. In case any of you didn't know, that's how it works in sports. Can we get the 50,000 likes on TikTok, please? So some say it's unfair to force biologically female athletes to sacrifice their chances of winning or at scholarships for someone who has transitioned after male puberty. I say I don't care when you transition. I don't care when you did it. Before or after puberty I think that's a compromise that people who are of agreement with where I'm coming from, that's not a compromise worth making. I don't want to compromise on. I don't care when you did it. You could have did it when you were 2 years old. You could have did it when you were 19 years old. If you were born with a bat and balls, you are a male biologically, and you must play against boys in sports. If you want to play sports, you got to play with the boys, period. None of this, oh, well, it was after puberty and this and that, because does everybody go through puberty at the same time? How are they figuring this out? See, now you enter, when you do it like that, when you say after puberty, because puberty is different for every person, now you're introducing these variables that people can find they can find loopholes around these variables and start working around it. And then you bring doctors into it, and they're talking about the genetics, and you got a bunch of doctors who are okay with this transitioning stuff, especially for kids. You got a bunch of doctors who are not. So now it becomes this semantics argument over who can put together a better argument and make it sound more smart on a podcast or something, or in a research paper. And now you're introducing all this nonsense into the situation. How about we make it real simple that the everyday person can understand? If you were born with a bat and balls, you got to play boy sports as long as you play sports, period. Everybody can understand that. I don't need a doctor. We don't need some scientist to come in. We don't need someone who's quote unquote studied it. We don't need a research paper. We don't need people arguing on Joe Rogan. This is it. If you're born with a bat and balls, you got to play boy sports. That's it. There is no equivocation to this. There's no way around it. There's no loophole to this, period. That's a simple way of solving the problem. And it needs to be that simple so that because if it's not that simple, what happens is you start introducing, when you get into, well, we can split hairs on this and puberty for this person, and this person has this much of a hormone, and we can measure this much hormone. If you're under 0.36 amount, then you can play. And if you're over it, you can't. See, when you do all that, here's the problem with that. When you do all that, you start introducing these academics and these scholars to come into the conversation. And all they do is junk up the conversation with a whole bunch of gobbledygook and jargon that talks over the heads of most people in such a way that they confound and confuse you with what they're saying, to the point that they kind of are trying to intimidate you with their intellect, to the point that you don't quite understand what is going on. And in that confusion, in the midst of that confusion, that's when they slip into bullshit that you didn't even notice. And it's only when it's too late you realize that they did it. That's why I want to keep it simple enough for a fifth grader to understand it. Fifth grader can understand you're born with a bat and balls, you got to play boy sports. All right. We don't need any doctors in the conversation. All right. So doctors, thank you, but no thank you. We don't need you. All right. We need you as a human. We don't need you as a doctor. So some claim that gender is more complex than biology, so sports should adapt. So again, here's where you start to get people trying to outsmart you with the language. Even when they bring it to this one right here. Gender and biology, or gender versus sex. This is when people try to start talking over your head. This is when you're dealing with academics, you're dealing with doctors or people who've done any study of medicine. This is what they do when they hear that you have an opinion that they disagree with. They immediately try to bring it to something that they think you can't answer as clearly as they can. And then they use that as a toehold to invalidate you in anything that you've said. And then they explain how they know it so well and why they should be the authority on the subject simply because they have so much knowledge on what's the difference between this thing and that thing. That's the reason why I've suggested plain language, common sense ways of looking at it, which again, a fifth grader can understand. You don't need any kind of degree at any level to understand it. If you're born with a bat and balls, you must play boy sports. And if you're born with a badge, you get to play girl sports. That's it. In one fell swoop, we eliminate all the jargon. We eliminate all the nonsense. We eliminate all the doctors. We eliminate all these people who don't even fucking play sports, but they want to introduce their severe knowledge into the situation. Why? Just so they can make themselves feel important. So let's eliminate all that. All right. So I just solved that problem. All right. So Donald Trump, give me a call and I can be the sports czar and solve all these problems. In sports, biology is everything. So some say gender and biology. So I guess gender is whatever people consider themselves to be. Like, is that the way they do it? Gender is what you consider yourself to be, or if you would decide to accept how you were quote unquote assigned at birth, this nonsense language. Biology is everything in sports. I've already explained this. Biology is everything in sports. So if you're born with the genetics of Dwayne Wade and that child decides to go play in the WNBA, they're going to be able to can't do, physically cannot do. That's not gender, that's biology. Those are the genes that are encoded into that person's body. No matter what they call themselves, no matter if they wear a dress, high heels, or sneakers and Timberland boots, there are genetics that this person has that you can't change no matter what you call yourself. So there are rules in place, some say, like, this is the term, hormone therapy. That's the thing they call it, hormone therapy. And if you're going to be a transgender athlete, you got to be under certain hormone therapies for a certain amount of time, and it has to be at this age, and if you have this amount, and see, that's all the nonsense. That's when you start junking up the conversation. I don't like junked up conversations. If y'all can't tell, I like things to be clear, black and white binaries. Like, it's this or is that. And men, this is the way that we generally look at things. We like things in black and white. We like absolutes. We don't like these wishy-washy, gray area, blurred lines bullshit. See, when you allow that, that's when you allow the shenanigans in. Because when you allow blurred lines and gray areas and all this jargon to come into the conversation, all it takes is one person, whether male or female, who's really smart, really good with words, and they know how to talk circles around people. And there are a lot of them out there. A lot of them come out of your favorite colleges and universities. They're really good at this. They're experts at this. And that's exactly what they do. They go talk circles around you using language that you don't understand. They gish gallop you out of the room to the point that they've confounded and confused you. And in the midst of that confusion, they slip in what they want to do. And you don't even realize what happened. That's why I like to keep it real simple, binary, black and white. And what some of these people will try to do when they hear somebody like me saying what I'm saying is that they'll try to go over my head and say, well, you don't have the expertise, you don't have the knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. Bullshit. All right, I'm telling you the black and white of what it is. Tell me why somebody born with bat and balls should be able to play a girl sport. Explain that to me, doctor. Tell me why that makes sense. Let's just keep this conversation simple enough that everybody in the room can understand what we're saying. If you got to use language that everybody in the room doesn't understand, then no, you missed. Use plain language so that everybody gets it. And see, if you put things in plain language, people can't bullshit you. And what happens, again, this is the reason why I'm bringing this up, that people who are academics, and listen, I have a college degree. And when I say an academic, what I'm talking about is people whose personal value, not personal value, their personal self-worth and the way they see themselves and the way they conduct themselves out in the world, usually often based on their profession, the job that they've chosen, is all based on showing you how smart they are. That's what I mean when I say an academic. A person whose career is based on, let me prove to you that I'm smart. See, I don't have to prove to you that I'm smart. Now, I can talk to you in plain language and never even mention that I went to college. You'll get my point. And you agree with my point, agree with my point. You disagree, but not because of anything about my background. And what these academics will try to do is, again, they try to one-up you by showing you what they know on an intellectual level. And because they know more than you, they have a one-up on you intellectually. And again, their whole career is based on being one-up on everybody they come across. Now they try to exclude you from the conversation because you're simply not smart enough to keep up. My argument is the exact opposite. If you're really smart on a subject, you should be able to get your point across to someone who knows absolutely nothing about it. That is actually the golden key of communication. It's not, I'm so smart that you can't understand me. The golden key of communication is, I'm so smart that even though you know nothing about the subject I'm discussing, you understand it 100%. That's actually the proof that you're an expert communicator. Not that you can talk above somebody to the point that they don't understand what you're saying. You should be able to talk down, so to speak, such that anybody can get it. Again, this is the reason why I keep saying a fifth grader. If a fifth grader can't understand what you're saying, then you are not clear enough in your point. Anyone should be able to get it. Someone who dropped out the 8th grade should understand what you said and understand it very cleanly to the point that they can give it back to you in a way that you understand what they said. That's called clarity and communication. If you got to use jargon, then it means you are not clear enough to speak to the masses of people on that subject. You can speak to your academic friends in your small little corner over there, but you want to talk to the masses, you got to be plain. Continuing. So this hormone therapy requirement is nonsense. I'm throwing that baby out with the bathwater. We're not even going there. All right, let's keep it simple. Even with the hormone stuff, Males still retain structural advantages. Males tend to have longer limbs, higher muscle mass, and stronger bone density. So even if you wanted to go there, we could just say that, but we're not going there. Again, don't even split hairs with me on that. I don't even want to go into that conversation. We're at 52,000. Thank you, TikTok. Can we get to 60, please? Can we get to 60,000 likes, please? Progressives, this is your Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris and others over there in California. Again, I'm sorry to you California residents. Progressives say this is about evolving society to be more accepting. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. I say that one 3 times. No, that is not what this is about. Or actually, that's what they think is about, but I reject this. This is completely 100% rejected. Return to sender. No, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. We are not evolving society to be more accepting. No. And again, when societies are flourishing and thriving, is because men step up and say, here are the rules, here are the standards, here are the parameters, here are the lines that cannot be crossed, here are the borders that cannot be extended. This is exactly what we're working with. Do not cross these lines. That's how societies flourish. When you get people coming in and convincing you to allow you to lower your standards, relax your parameters, relax your borders, not enforce them, and all of a sudden anything goes that we can talk our way into, this is when you get nonsense. When you allow people to start talking their way into anything, what you're going to get is a bunch of intellectuals coming in and academics coming in who can talk you into pretty much anything because they're really smart. They know how to do it. And they'll talk you into a whole bunch of bullshit, and you won't realize that you've been talking to bullshit until you're so deep in it that you can't get out of it. That's how it happens. This is what progressives want to do. This is how you get a boy competing in girls' sports and winning a fucking championship and a trophy, and everybody's okay with it. Not everybody, but a lot of people are okay with it, including the governor who's about to run for president, including the person who just ran for president and lost. All right, they were okay with this. You heard them say it. You heard this person say it. We're okay with this. So this is not about evolving society to be more accepting. There's a scientific law called the law of entropy. Law of entropy states in very simple terms that things are always moving into a state of higher chaos and disorder. That is a natural state of life. It's a natural state of humanity. This morning I was outside and I saw the grass outside of my building. I said the lawn mowers or the landscapers, whatever they call themselves, they got to be coming soon because this grass is getting super long. Down here in South Florida, we get rain and they got the sprinklers on the grass. Grass grows like crazy. Grass grows in like 3 days. So you cut it and like 3 days later, it needs to be cut again. The point is, if nobody comes and cuts this grass, what's going to happen? It's going to start looking crazy. The building's going to look like it's abandoned. There's going to be all kinds of snakes and critters and all kinds of stuff going on in the grass to the point that you don't even want to walk in it. And people drive by it and look at it and say, it looks like nobody's taking care of that place. All right, naturally, disorder occurs. Disorder increases. If you don't brush your teeth for a week, what is going to feel like on your teeth? You know what it's going to feel like. If you are a person who hasn't worked out or gone to a gym in 10 years, what's your body look and feel like? You know what it looks and feels like because you haven't been doing the work. Entropy, again, occurs naturally. If you do nothing, naturally, you will become more disorderly and more chaotic. If you do absolutely nothing, just sit there and do nothing, things get worse. That's what entropy means. The only reason that the world that we live in is orderly and it seems to have some semblance of somebody is controlling something and keeping things in order in your everyday life, in your personal life, in your business, in your career, where you work, your office, your home, your family. Any of these places, the only reason things stay orderly is because someone is enforcing rules, standards, and parameters. Does everybody understand this? A person who stays in good shape throughout their life. You saw them 10 years ago, they were in good shape. You see them 10 years later, they're still in good shape. How are they still in good shape? Are they just genetically gifted by God to stay in good shape? No. They are probably watching what they eat. They're watching what they drink. And they probably take care of their bodies by doing things like exercise, right? This doesn't just naturally happen. At least not after the age of, let's say, 25. If Amazon, for example, you ordered a package from Amazon 3 months ago and it got there in 2 days because you're an Amazon Prime member, and then you order another package today and it gets there in 2 days because you're an Amazon Prime member, did that happen just because Amazon is just touched by God for packages to deliver in 2 days? Does that just randomly occur? Everybody knows the answer is hell no. Read some articles about how Amazon runs their warehouses. I guarantee you, you'll realize really quickly that ain't magic. All right, the reason that those packages arrive in 2 days is because Amazon basically, according to what I've read, they slave drive their workers. That's what they do. And they're about to not have any because they're going to replace all those people with robots. And those robots are going to get slave driven too. The good thing is nobody complains when a robot gets slave driven, but humans complain. Amazon puts type of standards on people that you could barely take a break. You can't take a cigarette break. You can't go to the bathroom, and you got to be super fast in every movement. And if you're too slow, they fire you. The computer fires you. It's not even a human that fires you when you work at the Amazon warehouses. It's a computer that fires you. And then 3 weeks later, they'll hire you again as if they never fired you in the first place. Read the articles about it. There's a lot of stories about this. They're actually kind of funny. If you don't work there, it's funny for me to read it because I don't work there. But if you work there, I guess it ain't so funny. The point being, the reason Amazon can deliver packages in 2 days is not magic. They deliver packages in 2 days because they have such strict standards that you can't mess it up. That's the point. If I go order a coffee from Starbucks here in South Florida and you order a coffee from Starbucks in Illinois or in Seattle, why does my coffee and your coffee look and taste exactly the same? It's because of standards. It's not because the barista in Miami called the barista in Seattle and said, hey, they're doing an experiment, so make sure you make yours the same way I made mine. No, that doesn't happen. It's because they have a set of rules of here's how you make the coffee. So it comes out the exact same way over and over again. And the standards are set in such a way, the system is, and a system is just a set of standards that are consistently enforced. That's all a system means. The system is set up in such a way that you can't mess it up. And if you do mess it up, they fire you. You messed up the system. Don't mess up the system again. Can you read? Or you know how to do point number 1, point number 2? Okay, don't mess up the coffee anymore or you're going to be fired. They don't say that, but that's what's going to happen. True or not? Of course it's true. This is the reason why Starbucks is the same no matter where you go. McDonald's the same no matter where you go. Amazon, 2-day shipping no matter where you're at, at least in the United States. Standards, folks. I'm saying all that to say this. Progressives are saying that we need to evolve society to be more accepting. What does more accepting mean? Let me tell you what it means. Let me translate it for you. Whenever someone is telling you that we need to be more accepting, what they're telling you is the current parameters and standards that you have in place are too strict to where it is excluding too many things and too many people. So we need to lower these standards so we can include more people and more things. As soon as you start doing that, you are introducing the scientific inevitability of entropy, meaning you will get more chaos and more disorder. This is not a theory. This is not my opinion. That is a guarantee. Does everybody understand what I just said? Let me take a sip of water and make sure y'all digested that. Anytime that you allow someone to convince you that you need to be more accepting, this is what they're telling you. Your standards are too high. And because your standards are so high, you're only getting this much of whatever is happening out there. But there's this much available. So if we want to get access to this much, we have to lower the standards so that we can allow more in. This is what colleges did. They lowered their standards for acceptance so they could accept more students who otherwise wouldn't make the grade. They otherwise didn't clear the bar to get into an Ivy League college. So let's lower the standards so we can bring in more kids who otherwise didn't qualify. This is how you get DEI in colleges. This is how you get it in organizations. Oh, well, all the people who work here seem to be middle-aged white men, and it ain't that many females, it ain't that many minorities. So how about we change our standards for who gets to work here and we lower them a little bit so that we can accept more people who otherwise would not qualify for the job, because the only people qualifying seem to be middle-aged white men. So how about we lower the standards so something other than middle-aged white men can get a job, and let's let them in. I'm not saying that's always the case when it came to DEI, but it's often the case. That's often the case that you got to let in lower quality people just so you can hit the quotas. That's what it came down to. And people know it. Not everybody wants to admit it, but people know that this is how it works. You're on a sports team and they say, well, hey, all the players on the New York Knicks are athletic 6'5" black guys. But you know what? Look at all these Asian guys who are out here. Look at all these white guys who are out here. Look at all these Latin guys who are out in the world who love basketball too. We just saw them playing at the playground in Brooklyn. How about we figure out a way that we can allow more of them to come in? We need more acceptance of different genders and races on the basketball team at the New York Knicks. So what do they got to do? They can't just go, let's go canvas even harder in the Latin community so we can find a really good Latin player who's good enough to beat out one of these 6'5" black guys for a spot on the roster. Problem is you ain't going to find any because none of those guys is good enough to beat out the black guy. None of these white guys is good enough to beat out the black guy. None of these Asian guys is good enough to beat out the black guy. So New York Knicks is going to be a bunch of black guys next year. But now you got a mandate from the federal government that says, well, since you get a tax break from us, New York Knicks, you got to get some Latin guys on the team. You got to get some white guys on the team. You got to get at least one Asian on the team. And we need at least one girl on the team. So what did New York Knicks do? Because they can't just say we pick the best players, because when they pick the best players, you got a bunch of black guys. So what they got to do is lower the standards from the best players, which just happen to be black. They got to lower the standards so that they can justify allowing someone who's not one of the best into the room. This is what happens when you are convinced to be more, quote unquote, accepting. This is what acceptance means. It means allowing in entropy. Now, how does that connect to New York Knicks? If New York Knicks go from having a bunch of black guys on the team because they're the best players to allowing a girl and an Asian guy and a white guy and a Latin guy on the team, what's going to happen to the performance of the New York Knicks? It's going to go from here to here. They're going to get worse. Why? Because you have worse players. Because you decided you need to be more accepting. You cannot prioritize acceptance and performance at the same time. It's impossible. You can only prioritize one thing at a time. Human animal has a limitation. We can only focus on one thing at a time. If you are focusing on acceptance and diversity and inclusion and equity, then you can't be focused on performance. You can't do both at the same time. You may get both by a stroke of luck, but not because you can systematize and strategize to do that. You cannot strategize for two priorities at once. It's an oxymoron. Priority means first, number one. Any of you been in a car before? Oh, you know how to drive, right? Most of you got driver's license. How many steering wheels in a car? How many driver seats in a car? One. So you cannot say we need to evolve society to be more accepting while at the same time saying we want society to be all about high performance and producing results. Now, you can evolve to be more accepting. The problem is the trade-off of being accepting is that you are prioritizing acceptance over performance. If that's what you're okay with, fine, New York Knicks. Okay, put a girl on the team, put a Latin guy on the team, put a Mexican guy on the basketball team. Your team's going to be worse. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with it too. Now, what we doing? I'm just asking what we're doing. So is it about performance? Is it about rewarding the best? Or is it about let's just have acceptance and let's allow some entropy into the room? All you need to understand is the law of entropy because you'll see it in your own lives very easily. Anywhere where you're not upholding standards, you got disorder and chaos. Guarantee. Every one of you listening to this right now. Anywhere where there is no standard being upheld, you have disorder and chaos. If you don't see it, it's coming. If you don't clean your house for a month, what happens to your house? Now, any of you used to cleaning your house like every week or every other day or every day? If you stopped cleaning the house, what would happen to the house? Everybody knows the answer. I'm giving you these examples so all of you can understand this in your everyday life, but this applies on a macro as well as a micro. The good thing about the laws of science is they apply to everything at all times. So when acceptance tramples fairness, integrity, and opportunity, we're no longer progressing, we're regressing. So it depends on who you're talking to. So the progressive will argue with you through their language games. And you notice people like Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris. I don't know what Gavin Newsom's academic background is. Anybody know? What is the academic background of California Governor Gavin Newsom? If you look at the academic background, I'm going to guess that Gavin Newsom has an advanced degree from some college. I'm going to guess. I don't know. But any of you know, go ahead and put it in the comments to let me know. But I'm guessing. I don't know anything about his background. I do know Kamala Harris has a law degree. That's an advanced degree. So she did the 4 years, then she did more. All right. Usually these folks who are on the progressive side, they usually are overeducated or super educated, if you want to call it that. And they have all of these things that they believe about how things are supposed to go. And they can talk circles around you on anything that they want to push. And they can pretty much get away with it. So California Governor Gavin Newsom, he graduated from Santa Clara University in 1989. He got a Bachelor of Science degree in political science. And then he has severe dyslexia, according to what I'm reading here. He got dyslexia. He was diagnosed with dyslexia when he was 5 years old. In high school, then he played baseball at Santa Clara University. Then he stopped playing baseball because he hurt his elbow. He studied abroad in Rome, Italy during college, his junior year. And no, he doesn't have an advanced degree. Okay, so I stand corrected. No advanced degree for Gavin Newsom. All right, shout out to Gavin Newsom for not having an advanced degree. But he's still a progressive. So he's still been poisoned by the nonsense, regardless of the fact that he only has a 4-year degree, like me. So acceptance tramples fairness, integrity, and opportunity. We're not progressing, we're regressing. We're sending things backwards. So giving an extra trophy lets everybody feel seen and validated. Is that true? Yes. If you give a participation trophy, let's say we had a competition and there are 20 participants and we give a trophy to everybody, well, everybody feels seen and validated because everybody got a trophy. The problem is, the flip side of that is, participation trophies kills the spirit of competition. Sports should have clear standards, there's that word again, and real winners. To have a winner, you got to have a standard. The standard for winning is you got to beat everybody else. That's what winning means. The standard for winning is you beat everybody else. That's literally what it means. When Riley Gaines was in that race and she came in tied for 5th, guess what? Every racer after number 5 didn't get anything. They went home empty-handed. They went home with a story. that they got to be in the race. They didn't go home with a trophy. Only 1 through 5 got a trophy. Everybody else went home with nothing. That's the way sports works. That's the way the masculine world works. Either you win or you fall short. That's it. What did what's that woman's name? What did Cersei Lannister say to Ned Stark in Game of Thrones right before Ned Stark lost his head? Literally, she said, "When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die." That's how it works. And it's not usual coming from a woman to say something like that. But I think if you watch Game of Thrones, Cersei was very much in her masculine throughout a lot of that show. We're at 71,000. Let me get to 75, please. Almost done my points when we get to the comments. Letting transgender athletes compete as their chosen gender is framed as a civil right. It's framed as a civil right. It is not a civil right. And just even bringing this into a civil rights discussion is disgusting and sickening. But again, if Mrs. Harris or Mr. Newsom wins the White House, they're going to try to federalize this. Guaranteed that's going to happen. They're going to try. Whether they succeed is a different story. But are they going to try? They absolutely will. Civil rights should not come at the cost of other people's rights, namely the girls who train to win and lose. Again, when black people fought for civil rights in the United States of America, we weren't saying take away anybody else's rights. We were just saying, hey, other people have certain civil rights. We want the same ones. We weren't saying, okay, take away theirs and give them to us. All right, that's not civil rights. Civil rights means everybody has rights, not let's just give some rights to some people while at the same time it being at the expense of others. Black people getting civil rights was not at the expense of anyone else. Was the reason why it worked. One of the reasons why civil rights worked and the reason why it was, It was influential and we were able to, and when I'm saying black people as a whole, were able to get other people on the same page is because, again, we're not asking you to give anything up that you already have. We just want to be treated civilly, just like everybody else is. Again, if there was a trade-off, it'd be a much harder argument, a much harder sell. But because there was no trade-off, there's no trade-off. There's nothing to lose. Just give everybody the same rights. So when they say civil rights for transgender athletes, what you're saying is you want someone who was born as a boy to be able to go play in girls' sports. But what you're taking away is the right for the girls to compete against only girls, which is what Title IX in essence is about. So this is a bad civil right that they're trying to frame it as this is some type of equality play. It's not. And states like California, they say they're following the best practices for inclusivity. I agree. That's exactly what they're doing. States like California are following practices for inclusivity. Yes, that is correct. Fact check, true. Yes. The problem is, I already told you, inclusivity is a bullshit concept. It's a feminine concept created by progressives whose very idea is to destroy standards, lower standards, erase parameters, and erase rules so that they can allow more disorder and chaos. When a boy is playing in a girl's sport, winning and getting a trophy, and a bunch of grown-ass adults who have been around since the 80s are sitting there watching it and letting it happen, we are in a state of chaos and disorder. We are there already, ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't know. We're there right now. A boy born with a bat and balls is playing a girl's sport, winning, getting a trophy, and the parents are sitting in the stands clapping for this shit, or sitting there quietly, or doing anything other than saying, hell no, this ain't happening. We're in a state of chaos and disorder. We got it. Chaos and disorder has entered the chat. Now, why would anybody want chaos and disorder? This is the last question I'm going to answer before we get to the comments. Why would anybody want chaos and disorder? This is an interesting question. It needs to be answered. The reason why somebody wants chaos and disorder is because there is opportunity in chaos and disorder. When you can create chaos and you introduce more disorder, that creates opportunity for people who, pay attention, otherwise would not be able to get into the space in which they got. You want to see an example of this? Look at the 2024 presidential election. Because a person who went through or started to go through the primary in 2020 and their campaign was so poorly run and they were polling so terribly, they dropped out of the race before they even started casting votes. That person, all of a sudden, now is running for president, is on a Democratic ticket. Why? Because of the chaos and disorder that happened in the summer of 2024. Allowed a person who otherwise would not have qualified for the position. And when I say qualified, I don't mean my personal opinion. Qualified meaning you went through the gauntlet of other Democratic nominees and you beat them all. That's called the primary. The person who otherwise could not have done that all of a sudden got at the top of the ticket and they didn't have to beat anyone in order to get it. This is what happens when you get chaos and disorder. Do you understand that example? The chaos and disorder of Joe Biden clearly slipping to the point that you couldn't hide it anymore was a situation of chaos. That in that chaos, you got a person who had never earned their way to a nomination getting the nomination. Because if there was no chaos and Joe Biden said, I'm stepping down after this term, have an open primary to replace me, and everyone got to throw their hat in the ring, then the governor you have of California right now damn sure would have beat the vice president that we used to have in 2024. That wouldn't even been a competition. That would have been a annihilation. And I would think of maybe 3 other people who would have beat our former vice president. I think Shapiro would have beat her. I think Whitmer from Michigan would have beat her. I think Michelle Obama would have beat her. Now, Michelle Obama wouldn't beat her now because Michelle Obama has talked her way out of that position. But before she started talking, Michelle Obama would have beat her. She could give prepared speeches like anybody else, better than Ms. Harris could. So, again, I'm just giving you all examples. When there is chaos and disorder, people can slip in and things can happen that otherwise never would have happened. That's the deal. All that being said, the people who are scared to take a stand and say that a boy cannot become a girl, and a girl cannot become a boy, these are our problem in society. And it's not the women. Again, there's a bunch of women who believe that. Go ahead and believe it. I'm not concerned with what a bunch of women believe. I'm not saying it in a misogynistic or sexist way, but if you take it that way, so what? What I'm saying is if men stand up and say a boy cannot become a girl and a girl cannot become a boy, and every man in America believed that, there'd be no way any of this would be happening. I'd be talking about something else today because this wouldn't even be a topic. If every man in America said no boy can become a girl and no boy is allowed to play in girl sports, there would not be a single boy playing in a girl sport. Not one, anywhere in the country. So it doesn't matter if all the women thought it, because if all the men said no, it ain't happening. The only reason this happens is even if the idea came from a woman, is that you got to get a man to agree to it. And when a man agrees to some bullshit, this is how societies collapse. So I'm blaming this on the men, just to make sure I'm being very clear. I don't want there to be any confusion as to where I'm coming from or how I got there. All that said, let's get into the comments here. Let's start over on, I think I can forego a bathroom break here today. Crespo said they gave the trophy to the girl to shut her up. Unbelievable. Well, they came up with a compromise, but it's a bullshit compromise because they're trying to please both sides of the conversation. And the problem is this is a situation where you can't please both sides and they shouldn't even try. That's where they're failing. Giraffe Student Athlete says, I appreciate you not subscribing to the pause. I still use it sometimes. How we go from that's what she said to playing pause games at 50 years old. Well, people still say it depends on where you're from. It's more of a regional thing. Like people from New York use it all the time. Said, oh, it's a game, so we played as kids. Do you 8 out of your nosy kid? You still don't do that. You're 50. Why are we playing the games all of a sudden? Well, again, depends on where you're from. Regionally, you go to New York, people say it all the time. Crespo said, people change their bodies and then say God made them like that. Lies. Yes, well, there's certain things you can change if you want to. But you can't lie and say God made you like that. If you get a nose job, just say you got a nose job. But don't say God made your nose like that because that's why you got the job. So Lawrence Sanders calls it a crazy society. That's true. Giraffe says the media is doing a great job in conflating the flag agenda to being black. Yes, they've done an excellent job at it. And who's done a better job at it is black people. Black people have allowed that. I can't put that on the media. A Giraffe Student Athlete, I can't put that on the media. Black people allowed it by having a lack of structure and organization. And the flag group, the LGBTQ, did a great job of hijacking it. But I wouldn't put that on the media. The media just reported what was happening. Giraffe said, use the law of entropy when it comes to a spouse that wants to go on a girls trip. It's not about me not trusting you. It's the law of entropy. We got to maintain this daily. Well, it's based on your standards. Now, there are some men out there who are completely fine with what you would not be fine with. So it just depends on your personal standards. And if you can enforce those standards, that's really what it comes down to. Are you willing and able to enforce the standard? So over on TikTok, reading the comments, we're at 79,000 likes, folks. 80,000 officially. Can we get to 85, please? I'm reading the comments from the top. So if I didn't get to your comment immediately, I'm not ignoring your comment. I'm just reading from the top and seeing how many we can get through. We got about 33 minutes to get through comments. Robert said, during sports, you have to take a physical. And during that physical, once you had to be examined. Yes, but in college, I didn't have to take a physical. Not that kind. When I played college sports, I did not get that kind of physical where I had to strip down and be seen. Now, again, I was in college from 2000 to 2004. So maybe things have changed now, but I don't think so. We had physicals, but not that kind of physical. I think they should just do the testing the same way they do the testing for anything you've ingested into your body, which you can't see with your eyes, but you can tell through the test. The Humble said, nobody is changing their gender just to win in sports. Totally insane premise. That's not what I said. Straw man of the day immediately from the Humble Peasants. So the straw man of the day, for those of you not familiar, is an award that we give out, an unofficial award. Actually, no, it's an official award we need to sponsor. So anybody want to sponsor the straw man of the day, send me a DM, tell me you want to sponsor the straw man of the day, and we'll start giving out some type of tchotchkes to the person who wins. So the humble peasant got it today. The straw man is when someone takes something that they think that I said or that I allegedly said, they rephrase it into something that I didn't say, and then they argue against it, or they represent it to me as if I need to answer to it, or they ridicule it, or they attack it. So humble peasant just did this. This is the straw man. He said, nobody's changing their gender just to win in sports. Totally insane premise. So he's ridiculing a premise that I didn't say. He reworded something that I did say to make it seem like I said it and then arguing against it. So changing your gender just to win in sports is not something that I said. What I did say, alluding to what you're referring to or what you're alluding to, is that a boy goes and plays in girls' sports. Often that boy is not highly competitive in terms of coming close to winning in the boys' sport. But then when he goes to the girls' sport, he does better against girls than he does against boys. That generally has been true. However, what I also said, I think you may have been listening when I said this, hopefully you were, I don't care what place the boy comes in if you're playing in a girls' sport. I don't care if you come in last. You should not be competing. So if there's a race amongst girls and there's 15 girls in a race and one of them is a boy who became a girl and that boy comes in 15th place, they still shouldn't have been in the race. I don't care if they come in first or last. The principle is you don't belong in the race. It has nothing to do with what place you come in. So I want to make sure everyone's clear on that. So a lot of people, again, they try to attack Riley Gaines with this, oh, you're only mad because you came in fifth. No, it's not about what place you came in. It's the fact that that man should have been in the fucking pool. I don't care what place he came in. So it's not about winning at all to me. And I think a lot of people do a disservice to this argument when they argue about what place the boy came in or how much better the boy is than the girl. That's one of the supporting points, but that's not the main point. The principle is they don't belong in at all. Zero. I'm okay. So you are right. Thank you. My name is Dre, not Drew. Felipe said, fair is everyone to test. Yeah, everyone should be tested. What if she is stud? Which means what? Give me some clarity on what that means. Gemini said, I don't care what anyone says. You can always tell if the person is of the T group. Gemini, I would challenge you on that one. Where are you from, Gemini? My question to you is, where are you from? If you're a big city person, I would say, no, you can't always tell. I say if you get enough experience, then you can tell. So maybe you have a lot of experience, Gemini, to where you can tell. But to the untrained eye, you could be fooled. When I was like 18 or 19, I've been fooled. I found out before it got crazy, but I've been fooled before. So it depends on who the person is. So when you say you, who is you? Proverbs said, boys and men do not belong in girls and women's sports, period. Exactly. I agree. Peyton said, need more of this. Good. Peyton, come here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I got you. The humble peasant said, y'all really need better priorities. So the humble peasant, we don't have an award for logical fallacies of the day, but I see two of your comments. You got two logical fallacies. So this one is called the relative privation fallacy. Those of you not familiar with the relative privation, I'll explain what it means. All of you have seen it before, even if you don't know the term. Relative privation fallacy is when someone takes something that you're discussing or doing, and they say, you shouldn't be paying it. They say some form of, you shouldn't pay attention to that because this thing over here is more important. So what humble peasant just did is y'all need better priorities. So instead of me making the point that I'm making about this, because it seems like the humble peasant must be a supporter of boys playing girls sports, they're saying, first they try to rephrase what I said into a straw man. Then what they said is, well, y'all should pay attention to something else. Then why are you paying attention to this? You should pay attention to something else. That's called the relative privation. This thing over here is relatively more important than what you're paying attention to. So don't pay attention to this because you're saying things that make me uncomfortable. Pay attention to something over here that I'm more comfortable hearing about. So humble peasant, 2 for 2. Jenna Neal said, I played on male soccer team to get better, but it was wildly different, but was invited. Yes, I see girls doing that. Yes, girls who play basketball, for example, will come up training and practicing and playing against boys because it will toughen you up. And you know you're not going to dominate the boys, but you get better because if you can score in basketball against a boy, it's easy to score against a girl. So, Jenna, I get that point, but that's not, I think you understand. That's not really what we're saying here. But if a girl wants to go play in boys sports, go have at it. She's going to get her ass kicked, and you're not going to compete nearly as well as you would against other girls. But to use it as a training method, absolutely. If If I was training a young woman in basketball, for example, I would go get some boys for her to practice against. Now, if you can score on a boy, scoring on a girl is going to be easy. Courtney, good morning. Sonia Pernetti, good morning to you. Thank you. Traditional said, never had this decades ago. Yes, because we've introduced chaos. We've allowed for the introduction of chaos. Rel 717 said, you're a really awesome and smart guy. Well, thank you, Rel. But I will say, Rel, I got to take your compliment with a grain of salt, because people say that to me when they agree with me. But if I say something you disagree with, you probably had an opposite opinion. But I appreciate the compliment. Traditional said, we don't need research papers. No, not on this subject, we don't. I'm okay, said common sense. Well, the tricky thing about common sense, I'm okay, is that not everybody has the same common senses. So I'm very wary of that term, common sense, because people only say common sense when it's something that they understand, but then you're assuming that everybody else should understand it just because you do, and I don't agree with that concept. Lis says, men not allowed in women's restrooms and locker rooms. Yes, that too. Rel said they can have an LGBTQ league. Yes, that's what they should do. The problem is not enough people. That's the problem, is that they don't have enough people to have that league. But I think if they had the league, then a bunch of people will go join the league. That's what I think would happen. Tristan said it's not science. Well, technically it is. If you're born with a bat and balls, that's part of the science. Corey said, I'd have to agree, honestly. Well, I'm glad to hear about that. The humble peasant said it's a made-up issue. No, it's not. It's a real issue. George said, you're hilarious. Love listening to you. Thank you. Hopefully that's a compliment, not sarcasm. Jenna said, people definitely choose jargon to trip up the conversation to sound smart. Yes, and it's not even that they do it for that reason. It's just that this is the way they're trained. I know a lot of academics. I know a lot of studio. We good? YouTube X. Hopefully I didn't cut off for too long. So what happens is, because I know a lot of academics, and when I say academics, again, I'm being clearly defining these people who went to college. Usually they have advanced degrees, and their careers are based on proving how smart they are. So these are people who read and write research papers, argue on academic points and professional points, and often procedural points. And it's all just based on verbiage. Their whole careers are based on just beating people with their verbiage. And these people tend to default to that because this is what they do for a job. It's actually literally their job to do this. So it's not like they're doing it maliciously, but when your job is proving how smart you are, then you pretty much default to that. It's hard to turn that on and off. When you step out of work, you still keep doing it. So you see this a lot with lawyers. You see it a lot with college professors. You see it a lot with teachers. You see it a lot with research paper writers, and they often do some of these same things. And it especially comes out when they hear something that they disagree with, because they want to prove their point. So they default to what they do best, which is going over top of your head with their intellect. It's not wrong, not bad to be intellectual. It's also not bad to have an advanced degree. But can you talk in a way that a fifth grader can understand you? And can you win your argument on that level? If you can't win your argument on that level, then you have a lack of communication skill, as far as I'm concerned. We're at 94,000 likes, folks. Can we get to 100K, please? Humble peasant knows not. Many players have great bodies and are shit at the sport. Again, you're straw manning and you're trying to split hairs. That's called a red herring, what you just did there. Traditional said, me and my son just discussed this yesterday. Great. Marky Man said, badge. Never heard that one. What did I say about badge? Sonia said, I wish you worked for President Trump. You'll be a great inspiration. Well, it would be cool to work for any president simply because of the prestige that would come with it and the access that would come with it. But a couple problems with that is, number one, I'm not a big fan of anything the government, just government in general. I'm not a big fan of big government. So I don't know if I want to contribute to the problem by working there. Number two, as long as they're fast with the money, the government tends to be slow with things. I don't like making my money slow, so they got to pay me up front. And number three, I'm not built to work for anybody. Trump is cool, but I'm not built to be anybody's employee. Now, Humble Poet said, Josh Altuve was at the top of baseball. He's like 5'5". All right, Humble, you got to come with some better substance now. Now you're fishing now. So we're at 95,000 folks. Can we get to 100K? George said, baseball players come in all different shapes and sizes. So what does that have to do with the conversation? Sonia said, I'm going to share this with Trump's social media truth. All right, thank you. Do that, Sonia. Now, as long as they can pay me up front, I'm willing to take a call from President Trump and see what we can do. But they got to pay me up front and they got to pay me in full. I'm not waiting for my money, though. I'm okay, said, like Harvard, that is funded billions of dollars. Well, a lot of companies are, not companies, but schools are funded by the federal government. And they have tax exempt status as well. So they can just collect money and they got to pay taxes. Brian said, pseudo intellectual. I don't know if you're talking about me or what I was referring to. Barbie, good morning. I was in a bookstore yesterday with my son because it was raining outside, so I couldn't take him outside. And I saw this book. It was like a Barbie book based on, what's that woman's name who played Barbie in the movie? The white chick. She's pretty. I forgot her name. But they had a whole book on Barbie, and it was in shrink wrap, so you couldn't even leaf through the book. What's that chick's name to play Barbie? I can't remember her name. But she was the perfect pick for Barbie. She fit the what you would think a Barbie looks like. She looked just like it. I am okay said, don't throw my 8th grade education out there. No, actually, if you got an 8th grade education, that's as far as you went, you'd be the perfect litmus test because someone who's really smart should be able to get their point across to you. So if you really have an 8th grade education, you're perfect. Michael said, and the news spins it. Yeah, they spin what they're told. I mean, there are people feeding the news their information. It's not like they're making it up most of the time. Barbie said, did you see Newsom on his podcast and Charlie Kirk? He agreed with Charlie on trans in sports. I think I didn't see that one yet. I have it saved, but I haven't listened to the whole conversation of Newsom and Charlie Kirk. I think Newsom he's doing the same thing that Stephen A. Smith is doing, which is he's been strongly on one side politically and has been obvious. But now that obviously the country is swinging in the other direction by evidence of the way Trump trounced Kamala Harris in the last election, now he's trying to come out and show like, hey, I'm not so far on that side as you thought. Let me show you that I have some opinions and ideas that go on this side too. Same thing Stephen A. Smith is doing. And the people on that side, the right side, let's say politically, are so happy to hear somebody who seemingly was on the left now parroting the points of the right. They welcome this person with open arms because you got the same opinion as me. So again, this is the reason why Stephen A. Smith, you see him on a lot of politically right-leaning shows and being embraced by these platforms because he's saying things that they like. And he was known for being on the left. Now he's saying things that seem to align with people on the right, and they're just happy to have somebody who agrees with them. Not because he's actually keeping it real. Gavin Newsom's not keeping it real. Stephen A. Smith is not keeping it real. And if Kamala had won that election, neither one of them would be saying any of the things that they're saying now, even on their personal opinions. Of course, when it comes to the election itself, they're going to say certain things, but just their personal opinions. These people are chameleons that will say whatever they need to say to stay popular to a certain audience. And Gavin Newsom is part of that group. Kamala Harris is as well. Bubble said, liberal Dems are not satisfied. They are not ticked off. They thrive on turmoil, very sick. Well, Bubbles, in all fairness, I think people on the political left would say the same thing about people on the political right. And right now, people on the political right aren't pissed off because the political right is in charge right now. They control both sides of Congress, both houses of Congress, and they control the White House. So there's nothing to be mad about if you're on the political right. So the political left is mad right now for good reason. But let's just say by 2028, let's say that the Democrats control all of Congress and they control the White House. Then guess what? Guess who's going to be mad then? People on the political right. So it sounds good right now to say that. And I get it. It's true. But there's a reason why it's true. And if the tables flip, and at one point in the future, the tables will flip, ladies and gentlemen. So those of you on the political right, don't get cocky because there's going to come a time in the next 25 years where it is the exact opposite. The Democrats will control both sides of Congress and they're going to control the White House, and the political right are going to be the mad people. And by the way, while we're here, make sure you go to workonyourgame.live. That's the link in my profile on TikTok. That's where you can get links to go get any copy of one of my books that I give away for free. You can get access to our Circle group coaching program. You can find out more about Work on Your Game University, where I do my coaching. You can get links to my YouTube channel, all my social medias, so you can follow me in other places as well. Let's see. Jenna said, that's why most people I know at Amazon love it. Wonder if it's specific to certain warehouses. Well, yeah, that's what I read in the story. Now, Jenna, of course, if you're writing a negative story, a critical story, you find the people who are going to be most critical. Now, if they wanted to write a good story about it, then they would find other people. But from what I hear, they push very hard. They hold their workers to very high standards. You can't do 2-day shipping anywhere in the damn country by luck. Drew said, I love the flow of common sense. Me too. Thank you, Drew. Sonia said, keep speaking the truth. Thank you. Carla, good morning. Jenna said, lower standards to meet the requirements like female firefighters or cops. Yes, exactly. That's a good example. Sonia said, best to hire merit base only. Yes, the problem with that is that you end up with homogenic organizations, and that's the very thing that DEI set to destroy. So that's how we end up what we end up with. Heidi Flynn said, you are spot on. Thank you. Taco Tom said, this is flawed logically. I don't let people leave comments like that. If I got it wrong, just tell me what I got wrong. You don't have to say that part. Just correct me and tell me what is right. That's what I would say to whatever you said. I don't even know what you're referring to. I'm okay said, common sense needs to be taught in schools. Well, who defines what common sense is? I don't know about that. That's a tricky one there. I'm okay. Tonka Tom said, in the corporate world, I'm seeing unqualified friends of friends working jobs. Yes, because in the corporate world, people help the people that they know, like, and trust, and they don't have to be qualified. You just got to, if you know the right person, you can get an opportunity. That's the way business works. Someone over on YouTube, Jay, is mentioning MMA fighters born male, and they're pretty much retired. It was funny as Fallon Fox got beat by a woman. I think I remember that name. Yes, and I get what you're saying here, Jay, but it's not even about winning and losing. That's the point. And I don't want anyone who's in this conversation about men playing in women's sports, do not let the conversation descend into arguing about winning and losing, because that's a toehold that can be used against you. What if the male who became a woman goes and gets beat by a woman? That basically invalidates your whole argument if you allow it to go to that point. So, Jay, what you just said, again, that the example you gave would invalidate the argument. So it's not about winning and losing. It's about the fact that you don't belong anyway. I don't care if you win or lose. I don't care if you come in last place. You still shouldn't be there. Let's see. I'm okay said, true about civil rights. Lest we forget, Biden violated the flag code and conducted a drag show on Easter. I think I remember something about that. List said, CO new rule, overnight camps, teas in restrooms and bedrooms, no religious examples. What's CO? Colorado? Dastardly says, it's not a red or blue issue, it's a common sense issue, and common sense isn't common. Yeah, well, see, a few of you keep using this term common sense. You got to define what common sense is. I don't think everybody agrees. Michelle, good morning. I'm okay said, nation divided against itself cannot stand. Yeah, that's true. George says that causes confusion. And that's why I'm trying to eliminate the confusion, whatever you're referring to. Carl said, to create chaos to get power and control. Yeah, one way to getting it is through chaos. That is true. Dick Dastardly says, women Olympic sprinters are running times that I ran in high school. I'm assuming you're a male. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, this is why a men's tennis player could beat Venus and Serena, and he's not even highly ranked in men's tennis, but he could beat them. Jose says, why is it surprising that with 4 months to go, the VP was the Democratic candidate? I didn't even say it was surprising. What I said was it was a result of chaos. I didn't use the word surprise. It was a result of chaos. The reason that the VP was able to get the nomination is because of the chaos, because that same VP tried to run for president against Joe Biden. Remember that? It didn't last long. She didn't even make it to the primary voting because her campaign was so poor and her polling numbers were so terrible that she just dropped out of the race because she knew she didn't have a chance. And that same person became the nominee because they backdoored their way into it. They didn't earn it. To earn it, you have to go through the gauntlet and you got to beat everybody else. The same way Trump did, the same way Biden did. She didn't do that. She got in because of chaos. If it hadn't been for the chaos, she would never have gotten the nomination. That was what I said. Mark said Bernie would have. Oh, you think Bernie could have jumped in there? Yeah, Bernie would have beat Kamala. Okay, so that's another name we'll throw in there. So Newsom, Whitmer, Shapiro, Obama, Michelle Obama, and Bernie, all of them would have beat Kamala. And all of them would beat Kamala in 2028. They're all still alive, right? I don't think Michelle's getting in. I think Michelle has talked her way out of it. Mark said Michelle could have won president. She didn't want it. I think at that time, last summer, Michelle was popular enough that she could have won. I think she could have even beat Trump, possibly. Now, not so much, because she's put out that podcast and she has made her, I don't know, the more I hear from that podcast, the less likable she is. She was very likable when she wasn't talking too much, but the more she talks, the less likable she's become. So some people should just stay quiet. Tommy said, creating a mountain out of a molehill. Of what subject? Tara Mills, good morning. O'Shun, good morning. Sonia said, Michelle Obama would have lost the presidential election. Maybe. Sonia, you got to remember how popular she was. She's losing that popularity these days, but Michelle Obama was very popular. She's more popular than Kamala Harris. So she had a puncher's chance and her connection to Barack Obama, who won 2 elections. So let's be clear. Don't be so sure. I'm okay says, all right, we actually got to the bottom of the comments almost. Actually, let me not speak too soon. I thought we got to the bottom of the comments, but we didn't. Excuse me. So, false alarm. Science is probably being funded to genetically engineer. Probably. I think that's probably happening. You're probably right about that. To engineer a male into a female. That'll probably come. Science is going to be that good. Duke's mom said, nobody said that people change their genders to play sports. Yes, I didn't say that. There are some people who probably do that, but again, that's besides the point. Whether they did it, I don't care why you did it. If you want to play a sport, you got to play the sport you are biologically born to play. I don't care what your reason is. Again, we don't even have to chase these. We don't even have to chase these threads. And so, any of you who would get into one of these conversations with someone who disagrees with you on the subject, make sure that they don't let the conversation descend into these threads that don't matter. It's not about if they win or lose. It's the fact that they should not be in the competition. I don't care if you win. I don't care if you lose. You shouldn't be in a competition, even if you came in last. And I don't care why you did it. I don't care that you did it if you did it just to play sports, or you did it for a bunch of other reasons and you just happen to play sports. None of those is relevant. None of those reasons matter at all. So don't allow anyone to pull the conversation into that, because when they get you there, then they can render your entire argument irrelevant. They can give you one example of somebody not doing it for that reason or not winning, and now you lost the initiative in the conversation. Keep it where it needs to be. And again, when you're dealing with these academics, they're really smart and really good at getting you to chase threads that you don't need to be chasing. That's why I'm keeping it super simple here. Tommy says, is 0.02% of college athletes existing a bigger issue than a felon president and grocery prices? Tommy, this is what we call a relative privation. So I don't think you were here earlier, but I already pointed this one out. So relative privation is when someone says, well, why are you talking about this? Because it's such a small thing, instead of talking about this thing, which is more important. Well, they're both important. So your question is it a bigger issue? Is it a bigger issue right now because this is the topic? So the answer is yes, it is. Is a bigger issue here and in this context because this is the topic. Now, if the topic was the president and grocery store prices, then that would be a bigger issue. But right now in this room, it's a bigger issue because I said it is. So now I answered your question. Carrie Lynn, good morning. Carla said, I'll say changing their gender to win against girls. I haven't seen anyone getting the surgery. Well, again, it's not even if that's the reason they did it. They might be doing it for bigger reasons than sports, because it's not like a bunch of these boys who become girls are all going to play their sport at the pro level. Some of them are only playing high school. Some of them only playing college. Some of them may be playing for fun. Who knows? They may have bigger reasons why they're doing it that are bigger to their lives than just sports. But we don't want the conversation to go there because, again, somebody can manipulate you and knock you right off your square if you allow them to take the conversation there. I don't care why they do it. It doesn't matter to me why you did it. It doesn't matter to me if you did it just for one reason or another reason. I don't care if you won the competition or you lost the competition. The point is, you were born to batting balls. You shouldn't be playing girls' sports. I don't care what place you came in, period. If y'all allow the conversation to go lower than that, again, somebody who is better with words than you will talk you right out of your position and you don't even realize that it happened. So be careful. Can't wait says, you always make sense. Thank you. You're welcome. Yes, we're at 100K. Thank you, everybody, for us getting to 100K over on TikTok. Make sure you go to workonyourgame.live. That link has the links to get my books for free, like that black book there, this book right here, Sales Discipline System, this book right here, The Third Day, this book, Overseas Basketball Blueprint, and links to my coaching programs and other things we have going on. I got a lot of things that I do that I can't always show you all so easily because TikTok does not allow links. Amanda says, let them have their own league if they want to play, but absolutely not intermingle. Yeah, they can have their own league, or you compete against boys, because mostly it's boys becoming girls. There's not so many girls becoming boys. It's mostly boys becoming girls. So make them all compete with whatever they were born as if they don't have enough people for another league. Carla said, my daughter trains with the boys basketball team. Yeah, it's going to make her a lot better as a player training with the boys because, again, going against girls is easy when you've been going against boys. Tommy said, the right successfully use fear like this to win an election and make us poorer. Well, Tommy, you're talking about things that are not the topic here today. But some days that will be the topic. So you got to come on a day when that's the topic. Handwriting Nancy says, forget common sense. Everything you say makes sense. Well, thank you. Let's call it Dre sense. We need. I don't know about that one. But we again use common sense. So I got to be careful using the term common sense because, again, you're assuming people know or believe or agree with the same things that you know, believe, and agree with. And that's not true. Margot Robbie. Yeah, that's her name. Margot Robbie. Barbie. Carla said Newsom lies on everything. Right after that, he signed a bill allowing it. Yeah, so, again, we said we don't believe or trust Newsom nor Smith. Well, Stephen A. Smith, I don't think is a serious candidate. He's acting like he's going to be, but I don't see him competing against these seasoned politicians. I mean, he'll be interesting if he does keep pushing it, but I don't see him actually beating any of them in any way that anything significant. Sonia said, you're exactly right. Thank you. Yes, 100K, folks. Thank you for us getting to 100K here today. Thank you to the moderators who've been pushing. Lee said we need to vote red in massive numbers in 2026. Well, that's what the Republican Party is telling everybody. Carla said we don't dox people. We don't burn the flag. We don't do what the left does. Okay, well, people on the left would say some other things about people on the right. So they get, first of all, they're going to point to January 6th, 2021 and say, all right, when did the left do that? I mean, you could do tit for tat all day between the left and the right, politically in the United States of America. Right now, the right is sitting pretty because, again, the right controls all three branches right now, or not three branches, but three sides. Actually, you can kind of say three branches because the Supreme Court is more leaning to the right now, right? So, again, the right don't have a reason to be mad right now. So the left has a reason to be mad. But imagine when all that flips, then the right's going to have a reason to be mad. Well, Heck says DEI is a political ploy to buy votes. Otherwise, it would apply to sports. Well, DEI is many things. One of them is political. I agree with that. We said, yes, it's Colorado. Okay. Drew said, you're absolutely right about how Kamala got in the race. Yeah, we all know that. We all know that happened. I mean, was anybody unsure about how she got in? We know how she got in. Carla said, Whitmer is done. I heard that, but we'll see. It's still a couple years away. It's only 2025, folks. It's early. Piox says, why is something that impacts less than 1% of people so important? Well, hey, January 6th impacted less than 1% of people. It was less than 1% of people there who did it. There were less than 1% of people who were affected in it. Everybody else was just talking about it. So the same reason that January 6th is important is my answer to that. And again, this is another example of the relative privation. You often hear people go to the relative privation when they disagree with you on a subject and they can't come up with anything logical to push back against you. So they go to the deflection of, oh, well, why do you even care? Why are you talking about this? Something else is bigger than this. That's usually what people go to when they don't have any material with which to challenge you. So they try to make you not talk about the subject at all, because if you keep talking about it, then they get buried deeper and deeper underneath the quality of your argument. If you had an argument to go against what I was saying, Piox, you would give it. But since you don't have one, you're trying to get me off the square of talking about it. Nice try, but that doesn't work over here. That's my cue. Good morning. Thank you for the gift. Piox also says, well, other thing, it impacts less than 1% of people is given this much attention. So again, this is more of the relative privation. All right, we got your point and already knocked down your nonsense. Tommy Girl said the left is done. I would not speak too soon. The left is not done. Tommy Girl, I disagree with you. The left is not done. Because if they were done, then we wouldn't be talking about people like Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama, Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro. The left is far from done. 2026 is not that far away. 2028 is a couple years, but 2026 is coming. So don't get cocky if you're on the political right. Duke's mom said, you have a daughter that plays sports. You care. Even if you don't even have to have kids. You ain't got to have kids. A boy should not be playing in girls' sports, period. You don't have to have kids for this to matter. Michelle said, I think once Michelle Obama got into a debate with Trump, he may edge her out, maybe. Yes, possibly. The thing is, you can prepare for a debate. You can prepare your talking points. Kamala Harris is not a good extemporaneous speaker at all. She's terrible. But if she can prepare, she can sound competent if she can prepare ahead of time. So Michelle Obama is better at speaking off prepared remarks than Kamala Harris is. If you give Michelle Obama prepared remarks, she sounds really, really good. She has given some great speeches that were all prepared speeches, but we know they're prepared. But she's very good at delivering them. The same way that Puffy and Dr. Dre are great at reciting raps that they didn't write. Some people are really good at doing that. Michelle Obama is great at it, and she's better than Kamala. And Kamala got as far as she got. Michelle's better than her. She could have got somewhere with her ability. Now, Kamala, when she got to speak extemporaneously, she started talking herself into a hole. And the more she talked, the worse it looked, which is why her campaign fell apart, because Kamala is Kamala. I mean, she became a victim of herself. Michelle Obama, the same thing would have happened to her. But what I'm saying is, Michelle Obama is so much better than Kamala. She would have started at a higher point, and she wouldn't have talked herself into such a hole the way Kamala did, because she's better than Kamala prepared, and she's better than Kamala extemporaneously, even though neither one of them is actually extemporaneously. They're both bad, but Michelle's not as bad as Kamala. And Michelle has the fission of having been married to a guy who was president for 2 terms. So we can't just throw that away. Michelle would have had a much higher standing than Kamala in every possible area. And she didn't have the failure of having run a campaign before, which would have been used against her. So you also didn't have as much material to use against Michelle Obama. Kamala Harris has a long career of stuff you can use against her. How long has she been in politics? 30 years? How long has Michelle Obama been in politics? 0. So you have less to use. You have less ammo to use against Michelle Obama. She very much could have beat Donald Trump in 2024. I'm not saying I would have preferred her, but could she have won? Absolutely, she could have won. So again, those of you on the political right, don't get cocky. All right, don't get cocky. The political right has control right now, but things change. All right, if you've been alive long enough, you know this. So, all right, a couple more questions, then we'll wrap this up, folks. Jiminy said 2 sports, women and open. Yes, that's a fair enough one. Women and open, because the open will just be the men will be in the open one, and everybody else got to be in the women's one. But the problem with that is, Jiminy, is that what if some of the men decide they want to declare themselves women? So that's the problem with that one. Tommy said, nothing any good coming out of the left in any of those names. Well, for now, mind you, we're talking 2028. It's 3 years away. Reciprocal Terror said the left has most of the media on their side. Don't discount them. Even beyond that, right, they're not just going to lay down. You know how much they don't like Trump, and Trump's going to be out anyway. So when Trump's gone, who's going to replace him? You think the left's just going to sit there and let it happen? YG said Michelle will never run for political office. Well, now she never run, but the iron was hot. The iron was hot. It had Biden just stepped down for 2024, she could have stepped up and she could have won. She could have won until she started that podcast. Now with the podcast, there's no chance. She's done. But before that podcast, she damn sure could have won. Reciprocal said, Obama said a woman having a baby is one of the least important things a woman can do. Yes, she said that during the podcast. Anything she said on that podcast has destroyed her chances. But in 2024, in the summer, she didn't have the podcast. And she was very popular. Now, after the podcast is a wrap from Michelle Obama. Okay. And Michelle said, so was Hillary. Look what Trump did to her. Well, it was a race. Michelle, it was a race. And also, Michelle, Hillary Clinton won a primary. All right, Hillary Clinton went through the gauntlet and she beat everybody. All right, so that must also be, that got to be added to the record. Hillary Clinton won a Democratic primary. Now, how she ended up beating Bernie is a different conversation. But other than Bernie, I guess we could say she beat everybody else. Carla said, greedy Gretchen is worse than Kamala extemporaneously. She moves her head when reading a prompter. Okay, fair enough. I don't know that much about her. I just know her name. And she was up there. Sophie the cat said, you're forgetting that she would have debated Trump. Yes, and she could have used the same talking points that Kamala did. And a lot of people think Kamala won that debate, quote unquote won. But again, it doesn't matter who wins the debate. It doesn't look like it anymore. But it depends on how the debate went. And again, debates, understand, folks, you allegedly don't know the questions, but you know the questions. All right, Kamala Harris knew the questions to that debate. She prepared ahead of time. And Kamala Harris is not good at delivering prepared remarks, and people still think she won the debate. Michelle Obama is good at delivering prepared remarks, and she would have had the questions ahead of time, just like Kamala, and she's better than Kamala. So that's why, again, even in the debate, she still had a chance. She still could stand a chance. And let's keep in mind, 95% of voters already knew who they were voting for no matter what happened. So half of them would have said Trump won, and half of them would have said Michelle won, no matter what happened in the debate. Now, the Biden one, he sounded so terrible that even the people who were going to vote for him still had to kind of say, that wasn't a good day. So anyway, folks, we got to wrap this up. I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern to 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you like this one, come back tomorrow. We don't know what the topic will be. It's to be determined. You want to get into my group coaching program called The Circle. It's $97 a month. You also get access to my Dre GPT chatbot, which is available 24/7. And you can ask it any question you would ask me and get a direct answer for your business, your personal life, your mindset, anywhere in between as a member of The Circle. Just go to workonyourgame.live. You'll see a link there or the link to my profile on any other apps that y'all are on. The replay to this live will be on my YouTube channel. I am recording on YouTube Live right now, so shout out to the people on YouTube. And I will see everybody here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. If you have any questions or anything you need from me, send me a direct message on whatever app you're on. My assistant will see the DM and she will get back to you. Everybody have a great Wednesday. Thank you for getting me to 100K here today. All my moderators, Carla over there. Who else was in here? Everybody else. China, I see you in here. Michelle in here. Thank you. Who was it? Marky Man was in here as well. And a few others. I can't remember everybody who I saw in here, but a bunch of you. Thank you for helping me get to 100K here today. I'll see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. Work on your game. We are out.